Okay, there is a court out there that not too many people know about. And it's a court that I've recently been studying all their laws and their rules and stuff, just recently. And I've been going through court cases that go through this court and trying to figure out how we can use this court. And I'm starting to see this court as a key to a lot of the things that we want to accomplish. I think we can use this court to stop all forced vaccinations, for one. And in fact, I know we can use this court to stop all forced vaccinations. We can use this court to do a lot of things. Every building has a toilet. Every courthouse has a toilet. This is the environmental court. And when I'm reading these cases, I'm seeing where people have used, okay, let me just read you some stuff. In re ex parte petition for a great writ of habeas corpus of Rosario Ivan, continuing extraordinary writ of execution to Environmental Marshal Service. The Environmental Court has an Environmental Marshal Service. I didn't even know that existed until not too long ago. Okay. So I've been studying this, trying to learn. Continuing this extraordinary writ of mandamus to the United States Marshal Service, a writ of assistance to the United States Marshals, a writ of precipice to the Clerk of Courts, a writ of restitution to the Secretary of the United States Treasury for Rosario Ivan. This court is extremely powerful, and it can make the way it was set up, the way this whole thing was set up, was a huge police force for international environmental law. And the United States runs it, not reason. Why don't we hear about this on the news? Why don't we know anything? Why have I, who's been involved in this stuff since 1989, why have I not heard about the Environmental Court until 2019, 30 years later?
Is this under maritime? Is this under maritime law? Or is it a
It's
port?
under international.
So it's not part of, it's not,
All
maritime is international.
everything is maritime, pretty much,
Okay.
as far as international law. Except your rights, property, and equity, and trusts.
Right.
Everything else, any
It's-
contract
Okay, so
is
international,
maritime.
okay.
Okay. So, when you go through these cases, what you're finding is that everything is a chemical, biological warfare agent. These bad things they put in vaccines are chemical warfare under international law. They're illegal. They break every law that there is in the environmental court regulations. I mean, I can't find anything that it's not broken. There are acts of war. Trafficking, kidnapping, and fraud is involved. I mean, this guy is, or a lady, who is Rosario, is that a male or a female Spanish name? I think I've heard it in both myself. Anyway, we need to figure this out and fast, because I think it can stop all these problems. When you're going through and reading these different court cases, and I download some of the blank forms and all kinds of stuff from them, they are, I don't know what to say. I mean, there's so many laws. The Environmental Court was established by an act of Congress on October 18th, 1972. It was Public Law 92-500 that established it. The Federal Water Pollution Control Act amendments of 1972, Section 9 of the Environmental Court, is authorized by the United States Judiciary Act, Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 1651, to issue all writs necessary or appropriate in the aid of its respective jurisdictions and agreeable to the usages and principles of law. Amendment Articles 9 and 10 of the Bill of Rights Amendment of the Constitution governs these rights. Sovereign powers retained by the people of the United States. The Environmental Court is a district court authorized by Congress, as defined under Public Law 92-500, Section 2, Federal Water Pollution Control Act. Citizen suits can be brought to the Environmental Court, Section 505A. Okay, so I'm telling you the sections that say it is allowed. Having original jurisdiction and final authority over all international venues, to include the above defined venue and persons located on the continent of the Americas. Under 505A, guaranteeing Amendment Article 11, immunity to all citizens. All citizens of the Americas are immune from these environmental protections.
Immunity to citizens.
Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody. The people of the United States, appearing as a man, Rosario Ivan, an American national without the United States, is guaranteed sovereign immunity on unalienable liberty as provided exclusively for American nationals in Amendment Article 11, Constitution of the United States of America of 1819, from trespasses by foreign military, municipal personnel, or agents of the United States. Upon his sovereign immunity by unalienable rights of property to life and liberty by the benevolent respondent, Vanessa L. Bryant, doing business as a judge within the United States, such trespass constitutes a gross violation of due process law and affecting the good behavior standard of Vanessa L. Bryant, judge, whose only entitlement to hold office is during good behavior. So if they're out of honor, not supposed to hold office. So anyway, this is an American state national who brought this case in front of the Environmental Court. Using this language right here. Okay. He goes on and talks about jurisdiction. He establishes his jurisdiction. And as you go through this, he goes through his restraint of liberty. Respondent is in fact restraining and conspiring to further restrain the inalienable God-given liberty. So what he did was he sued a judge. Okay. The people of the United States, a man appearing as Rosario Ivan, who is without the United States, is not an enemy of the state, as described in United States Code Title 50, commonly known as the Trading with the Enemy Act. It is in fact at peace with everyone and everything, except the herein defined kidnapper. Kidnapper is in fact restraining the people of the United States based on invisible contracts, all of which are adhesive contracts and unconscionable through deceit, fraud, and failure of consideration arising from unlawful practices and policies executed under municipal, military, color of law for enrichments. Like his word. There is not now, nor was there ever, in the above defined matter brought by the kidnapper acting in conspiracy with foreign bar members, officers of the Corps within the United States, any judiciable issues. Respondent is in fact restraining the liberty of the petitioner under color color of law and not under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, under presumed agreements of assumption where no debt in fact lies and where respondent has no insurable interest. He goes on to talk about restraint of liberty is unlawful. I'm skipping a lot because I'm trying to give you an idea of what it is without having to read this whole thing. Okay. He goes through and he explains that, and then he talks about exhaustion of remedy. He's already been fighting this in court, fighting this in our courts. Okay? And he's exhausted all remedy. That's why he went to the environmental court. So he's got 20, 30, 39, 48, 55, 58, 59, 66, 62. 62 things that he's already tried to get remedy before he went to the environmental court. So he's been working on this. Okay. Conclusion. Petitioner knows of no other course of action in the above defined instant matters except by issue of the great writ of habeas corpus and all writs necessary or appropriate in the aid of the environmental courts respective jurisdiction to rescue the people of the United States from the torturous acts of tyranny by fraud upon the judge and fraud upon the court. That issue of the writ for habeas corpus is fundamental to a collateral attack on the torturous actions of the respondent and for further judicial review of the criminal acts of the respondents. So he's bringing this case on behalf of we the people. The issue of the writ for habeas corpus is fundamental to this collateral attack. For the environmental court, a court authorized under the preamble of the Constitution of 1787, Amendment Articles 9 and 10, established by an act of Congress in 1972, and having authority to issue all writs necessary for appropriate aid in its respective jurisdictions, agreeable to the usages and principles of law under 28 U.S.C. 1651, and to not grant the issue of the great writ would be a suspension of the writ with and by prejudice and would work a tort upon petitioner, a man. And further, for all federal, state, and municipal police departments and elected officials collectively governing authorities operating within the federal jurisdictional judicial district within which the property to be liened is located, refuse to execute all lawful writs. The property to be liened is him, his body, or her. A suspension of the writ with and by prejudice would work a further tort upon the petitioner or fellow citizen and would be construed as collusion and obstruction of justice complicit with the respondent, Judge Vanessa L. Bryant. When he signs this, he signs, I, an American national, Rosario Ivan, beneficial owner absolute, and the undersigned petitioner on my own unlimited commercial liability and bond, do affirm that I caused the above application for the great writ of habeas corpus to be filed in the International Environmental Court and do know the contents to be true, correct, and complete. So once you go through that main document, is his exhibits. This is where you learn what happened. And he shows from the Metropolitan District Commission that he looked up online what contaminants were in the New Britain Water Department. So you look at your municipal, wherever you're at, you can get the contaminants that are listed as toxic out of your water. You could probably say these better than me, but this was I'm going to butcher it. bromoditchfluoromethane. Okay. Chloroform, chromium, dibromofluoromethane, trihalomethanes, all kinds of these contaminants. Hormones in the water. And it just goes on and on of different exhibits. Nitrates, nitrite. No way I can say that word. Something acid. Dibromofluoromethane, chromium, chloroform, barium, chlorate, chromium, fluoride. All these toxic poisons that are in the water. Okay. Vanadium, strontium. He's probably got little vials of them.
To make sure you're not allergic.
Barium chlorate. I mean, on and on and on. All these different water reports they used as exhibits. But here's the cool thing. The environmental court researches it to see if he's right. And they do an investigative report on criminal violations of the city water system. And they go through and they come out with a great little report. Basically agreeing with everything he said. And this guy ends up winning his case, to make a long story short. Then brought in the grand jury to arrest the judge. They did a criminal investigation on the judge, arrested her, put her in jail under international law. They now had, when he first brought his case, his very first case, before that judge, if she would have sided with him and said the city municipal water system better clean up their water, she would have been fine. But she didn't.
Yeah, judges, instead of going with the money,
So
make
after,
them going with the
so
right
after doing
thing.
all that expense, all those, what was it, 52, 62 items, times he tried to get this solved, I mean, you talk about persistence. Well, after trying all those times in front of her to get stuff done. Yeah, I love the fecal chloroform disease carrying pathogens, stuff that they find in these reports, toxic pollutants. Oh my God, it makes you not want to drink water. Water scares me to death in this country. Our office in Scottsdale tested about every brand of bottled water, and this one right here was one of 2 that passed the tests.
Body armor?
Body armor water. It's one of 2 that passed the test.
Wow.
Out of hundreds of different bottled water companies. Okay, so if you just go into Costco and grab cases of bottled water.
I know some of the waters that used to be touted as the best are no good now.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Fluoride
terrible.
alone.
Yeah.
But look at all the chemicals that they found far more chemicals in the water than we did. When you look at this report, it's page after page after page of stuff that's bad in the water. Water, we all want to drink more of, yet it's one of the things that's killing us fast.
How did you find this case? How did you come across this?
I had a guy say to me, why don't you take those cases of medical situations from Child Protective Services and run them through the environmental court? And I said, environmental court? Never would have thought of that. Don't know much about it. Never really had any experience with a case in the environmental court. So I just started studying it. But when you start to read some of these, you realize that anything that comes in a hypodermic needle, in fact, anyone that even sticks a a hypodermic needle in you to draw blood is an act of war under the environmental laws. Just to penetrate your body. Now, I'm not against blood draws. I think they can learn some good things from drawing our blood, that might help us save our lives.
But they're not allowed to without our consent.
That's right. That's right. Everything they stick in us is an environmental concern. It's even more than that. It's chemical warfare.
Yeah, that's even ticks.
Look at what the state of New York's doing right now. Pulling the kids and saying you have to. They're
So my
forcing
daughter's-
vaccines. This is a way to end all of it. I strongly believe it's a key to winning.
My daughter in California is on this campus, and all these kids, they have to have the flu vaccine.
What
And I mean, they've got
Where?
out in
These are-
California,
these are-
out
Yeah,
in
but what's
Stanford.
Little cases
Oh,
and stuff. This
All
is
these
a
kids,
form I
oh,
got
you
from
have to have the flu vaccine, you have to have it. She doesn't
Environmental
say a word.
on-
They've all gotten the flu. She's been there 2 years. She hasn't had the flu. She's going on her 3rd year.
So-
Not been sick one day.
I've never-
Every friend she knows has been very sick.
I remember that happened.
Then they would say, if they found out she didn't have it, they've been brainwashed into saying, you're the one that gave it to us, is what they'll tell her, is that she's the one that gave it to them.
Well,
I used to sneak
what I would do
before I knew I
is
was
research the environment.
have vaccines. I used to
There's
sneak,
hundreds
not
of
getting them,
cases.
and just
Just
think,
start pulling
like someone
off.
said, you gave your vaccine, you had
You just research.
Yeah.
I've never been
Everybody else
immunized,
got
not
sick,
even as
and
a
I
baby
didn't.
to go to school or anything. Tattoos and Novocaine, that's the only needles I've ever had.
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, is getting if you cut yourself in with something rusty, is a tetanus shot still good?
I've never had
Kind
one,
of stuff.
and I've had
Because your
plenty of scars.
body, because your body, yeah, but I mean, dirty burn stuff, I'm wondering if that's, I'm like, doc, should I still get a tetanus shot if I stab myself in the barn?
One thing.
Out in the barn? Don't, my body will fight it.
If you win an
There's other-
environmental,
Because your
take
body
it to the Supreme
Fights
Court.
it,
Remember the stuff that I went through that I told you about yesterday?
Change all the laws.
It was 8 months after they got my TB shot.
I was gonna say.
Here, I'll tell you, all you need to know about flu vaccines right now.
oh my gosh.
Walmart will pay you $25 gift card to get a
Yeah,
flu shot.
I know.
If Walmart's gonna pay me $25 to get a shot, that is the last thing in the world I'd ever entertain putting in my body.
It's just like,
No, it's not.
Forced vaccination, sorry,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
forced
just
medication.
overview.
What other sorts of, assisting with the environmental work would be told?
Errors.
Sorry.
I mean,
Chemtrails,
yeah,
what about,
we're already doing a lot with chemtrails. Throughout the country, right now, it's about 10% of what it was 2 years ago. I mean, we're down that far. We've stopped that much. So, the chemtrail stuff, that's still.
Yeah, it is.
What was the goal?
I mean, I saw it.
What was the goal?
I want
It's
to know.
ball.
Yeah,
Ball,
Bear, ball,
ball.
B-A-A-L,
barium and aluminum.
yeah, okay, I thought you were talking about like.
Well, hydroponic equipment is all made out of aluminum. So our shop produces all kinds of aluminum scrap, aluminum dust, aluminum
Fluoride.
right? We sweep it up off the floors and you wonder why I've got aluminum problems. Well, anyway, they called us to combine all of our scraps, and they take it up to the airport in Portland, and they grind it all up into powder form, and they were adding it to jet fuel. Powdered aluminum added it to jet fuel. What were they doing? Anyway.
Just spread it around.
When I finally found that out, I quit selling more scrap.
I'm trying to figure out why someone has to say Monsanto or whatever to environmental court, the legislation, it's everywhere, we can't have it.
That's right. It's water, our shots, our air. You could probably think of a million reasons to go to the environment. Especially anything a doctor or hospital does. To force chemotherapy on our friend, right? Christine, our friend's son, forced chemotherapy. That's an environmental issue. She could stop that by going to the environmental court if we only knew exactly how. It's gonna take some more study and more research. I'm not ready to do it.
I think it's important to run through the health book too, because that's what this is all based
Okay,
One thing that maybe happens.
why isn't a marriage annulled after divorce is settled? Because it makes profit for the state. That's why. I'm not sure how, but I know it makes profit for the state, otherwise it'd be doing it. Everything they do is for-profit business. You have to go to Puerto Rico. I've heard that. I've heard it many times. I don't know if it's true. I've never tried it. I've been married enough. I probably need to.
Have you had your marriages at all?
No.
You have to go to Puerto Rico.
That can be done with one
Yeah,
party.
that's what I need to do, have it known.
So when are we all
You
going?
can go do it,
But I'm not Catholic, I didn't know you could.
I think it should be done. No, I have no answer for that, really. I don't know enough about it. I don't answer questions. I don't know enough about it.
So what is it, most just try to figure out the word, we're not in the whole, we're already there for over 10 years, so I got to still stay please.
They're essentially just separated.
So one for choice to over that.
Yeah,
Well, they were never married. It's the joiner and the enjoiner, and it's only a joint relationship in one state. So your relationship was always in your head in the first place.
right, right. Illegally,
It's a tax modification.
yeah. I mean, that's it. That's right. There's no direct line connection between the husband and the wife except through the state.
So it's like an amendment to your citizenship status.
I think it joins the bonds, and they encourage marriage because now you have twice the bond to pull from, and if one has a problem, the other one's covers it. I think it's very safe for
Oh.
state to marry like that because now they have access to both your
Well, I'm
custody.
almost positive that's what it is.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like double their availability.
Because I've learned in child protective services cases that they take $1.5 million out of the fathers and $1.5 million out of the mothers. Now, how I learned this is cases where two people slept together, had a baby, but they were never together. And so you've got the father way over here, and you got the mother over here trying to raise this baby. And I've ran into instances where I've been able to prove that they pulled $1.5 million out of his account. He's never spent one day with that baby. He stays away. Okay? So just through the birth and DNA process, they collected DNA to make sure he was the father. Well, sure, they'll have to prove it somehow. Or do they?
Yeah,
But anyway, they pulled DNA on him. CPS did it all. She was collecting welfare benefits. Anytime anyone's on any kind of government assistance, they're far more likely to have a CPS problem. The government pays out, they want the money. That's just the way it is. So stay off of it. Anyway, yeah, he was several states away, and they took $1.5 million out of CPS.
they're getting
They
so
take $1.5 million out of hers too. That's $3 million right off the bat. And then they get Title IV, they get ASPA funds. Title IV is out of their Social Security accounts, out of the husband and wife's Social Security account. They use their social to go after their account. People think, oh, they just go after the Social Security general fund. No, they go after their account. And then they get ASPA on top of that. ASPA is taxpayer dollars to kick in and help.
Is that an acronym? ASPA?
ASPA,
Is it an acronym?
and it's American Safe Family Act.
And that's important, that's used with Title IV, to create the Social Security.
It's almost like that's what
What is the correct way to go about recording your child's birth at the time of birth? Okay. this is a big problem, and one I've been fighting for a long time.
They won't let you out of the hospital now. I know 2 people now, they would not let them out of the hospital, and that's like physically leave, and they were free.
That's right, and even midwives, if they have a baby at home, the midwife is required to register the baby,
Give your baby away from the state.
to give your baby away to the state. And the problem is, it's under international law. That's the problem. It's under international law. That in all 197 UN countries, it has to happen. I know an entire family in Montana that neither the grandparents, the parents, or their children, and now their grandchildren, none of them have ever had a birth certificate or a social security card or a driver's license. One family, John Lamb's the father. I've talked to John about this many times. He says, "Look, we will never take a single dime from the government. We don't want a single dime from the government. I run my own business, and we don't associate with the government at all. They have their children and their grandchildren at home, and they deliver their own babies. Their family delivers the babies."
They're not Amish.
And he had 11 children, no, not Amish.
Make a living through PMAs or what?
Yeah, he's got 2 or 3 businesses and does quite well. And all their kids work for him.
I think it's so smart.
Yeah, it's a family business. All kids work for him. And they've been able to avoid government for many years. Problem is, that's how you'd have to not register your baby. You literally have to have it at home and have family members deliver it.
Okay, where's the law that tells the hospital that they have the right to keep you?
They actually will call the CPS up in the basement or whatever, and they will
Yeah.
forcibly take the child and not let you leave with the child.
See, and the problem is,
So
it's
where's the law?
international law. Everything international law, all the law falls under the UCMJ, the Universal Code of Military Justice. Okay. President Trump signed an executive order to make child sex trafficking an international crime. That allowed us in the military, through his executive orders, to go arrest these people for child sex trafficking. All the evidence that I collect all over the country, I turned to Jeff Myers in Judge Advocate General's office. They analyze what I try to do. If they think they're gonna make evidence, they show up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m., they kick the doors in, they take these people, they drive them to the nearest military base, and put them on a C-136 cargo plane, and they ship them to Guantanamo Bay, where they're tried under the UCMJ and executed. Department of Justice picks them up, they go into a jail, they go into court, they're slapped, they're out in a short period of time, they're back on the streets. The Department of Justice has arrested 1,700 people since this executive order in March. We've arrested more than 3,000. There's 4 of us gathering evidence. There's thousands of them.
So they're the entity that actually exacts justice based on which supposed trespass? Or what is the UMC or UCMJ going after people for specifically?
These 3,000 people, what are
They
they?
can go after for any international crime.
Child trafficking.
But this particular task force is child sex trafficking. Melania Trump started. She grew up in an area of the world where the people are very beautiful. And many of her friends and family got caught up in it. And it is her pet peeve. She cannot stand the industry. A lot of her fellow models get caught up in sex trafficking. Okay. Russian, Ukrainian women, many get caught up in sex trafficking. So, it's her pet peeve. That's the one thing she said, I'm gonna take this off.
Wow.
already been poisoned.
How was she poisoned? I never got to finish hearing about the rest of your story, but how was she?
Very similar. Very similar.
Happened to Ryson,
Oh my gosh.
figured that was the go-to tool.
That was a CIA thing.
So in other words, we all need to keep a pack of hand wipes, and every single time someone that you don't know shakes your hand, just wipe your hand. Wash your hands.
Is that what you're doing?
Right.
The percentage of the people that they're gonna go after like that are people that are right in there and breaking up their evil empire,
Sure.
you know?
Wow.
How do we finish the last one? Yeah. You know, in reality, we can do the childbirth thing the same way we did the marriage. We get a family Bible, we would record the event, we would go record it. That's just as legal. Just as legal. And that's how it should be done.
I feel like you're still giving him information that will be used against you by doing that.
That's how the birth of the child should be done.
Should be.
Okay. However, I mean, we've been doing it that way for more than
Until recently. Yeah.
more than 1,000 years, till recently.
Okay, but for us, for right now, until there is a law that we can legally go have our children and be free, the loophole is for our kids who are having kids. The loophole is have the kids and then immediately go turn the birth certificate back in to make them a U.S. national.
You understand that
Be
whole?
done. They're still going to get the bond, and
Right.
the U.S. is still going to get the bond for right now. But at least our kids can still be free once they're out. You just have to do that.
Right. Let me put it to you this way. Having studied the acts of Congress between 1908 and 1935 and set up this whole thing and seeing the fraud that came about because of it and did come about because of it, I want to tell you the other side of the coin. Had I been one of my grandfathers during that period of time, and they would have came to us and explained with full and honest disclosure the public charitable trust and how it works and how we're supposed to be the co-trustee and co-beneficiary and the only signatory officer, and they would have explained this to QB and how that works and said, here's what we're going to set up, all these CQBs underneath the public charitable trust. And with full and honest disclosure and the terms and conditions, if they would have said, we're going to put up the upfront money, we're going to bond you, we're going to insure you, we figured out that this is the only way to continuously fund government. But instead of being greedy bastards and taking all the money and bloating government, and making it bigger and bigger and bigger, we're going to treat it like it's supposed to be and actually make you the co-beneficiary. And by the time you reach the age of 18, you'll start getting a check for $1,000 a month. And by the time you're 25, it might go up to 2. And by the time you're 30, it might go up to 3. And so on and so forth. And they cut us in on the profits of the deal like they were supposed to. We put up our side of the bargain, our labor and our credit, as a full faith in government, credit of the United States government. And they put up the initial consideration, the bookkeeping, and keep track of it all, and invested in the American economy and U.S. Treasury bonds. It would have been a good deal for all of us. See,
Yeah.
it really would have. It would have eliminated poverty and homelessness in this country, and welfare never would have even had to come about.
Is that what's being suggested for UBI? Universal legislation?
Well, this new Democratic dude running for presidency, I don't know which one it is, but he's promised all these kids $1,000 a month.
Right.
So my daughter, writes me and she's like, oh, I got a funny one for you. And I'm like, yeah, how long is that going to last? And I was like, maybe he knows about that and that's what he's going to do. He's like,
I doubt it.
huh? I don't know which one it is. I didn't know what
Here's
his
the
name was.
reason I
And I'm
doubt
like, well, maybe that's what he's going to do. Because otherwise, there is not, I didn't think there was the money. Now I know there is the money.
it. Here's the reason why I doubt it.
Yeah.
Because
not gonna
he
give that
isn't in control of it. This is a United Nations deal, not a United States deal. Every United Nations country, Australia, Canada, on 187 countries, are under the same slavery system we are. All of them. This is how they figured out how to get rich and to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, more powerful, see? But had they gave us full and honest disclosure, it would have been a good deal. Had they done what they should have done. See, when they set up the public charitable trust, that was set up hundreds of years ago. That we, the people, would share in the benefits of this nation. That's how it was set up. But when they added the CQV, they decided not to tell anybody about it.
Who put the final nail in that coffin, Truman?
Roosevelt.
Back to the trust, how does that, like when you look it up, it said that it was started as English law, right?
1666, England was started.
So then how does this?
Other
switch over
countries
to-
adopted it over a long period of time. 1707, quite a few countries jumped in.
So that's how it came to America to be adopted.
Oh, yeah, that's all we always did. If you look at English law, almost every law we have in America, they had in England before us.
Get ready for your TV license.
TV license, those are big on?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't have to
No, you'll go
worry
to
about
jail if you watch TV without a license.
So
I don't have to worry about that.
1707 is when the
Television.
CQB system was established.
Yeah.
What was the law that, where is it that when we adopted it as a country? As an act or something?
1933, we adopted it, went in effect in 1935. It was all part of the New Deal.
Okay.
The great-
HJR 192.
Yeah. HCR 192.
But if it's a United Nations thing, weren't we already part of the United Nations? So
Yes.
we had to already, so,
Well, no, we actually were. We became part of the United Nations December 9, 1945. Before the United Nations, it was the League of Nations.
okay,
So history's
so we took on that part of the.
it's a
United
convoluted thing. You know, you really gotta study to figure out the pieces of the puzzle. I mean, it's hard.
Well, yeah, if we joined that 1945, that was like the kind of time when the UN was sending out Israel, and we started giving them $2 billion a year. At least.
Yeah, not many people know the problem. How do the people hold corrupt politicians accountable for the crimes they are committing against the people?
First one to flag.
Iowa lawful fight.
That's right. We did it yesterday. I claim so-and-so
The legislature, right?
offset trespass against. Here's his list of crimes.
Can I,
And start with a claim.
can I
They should
have a
federal
question
or
on that?
state or which jurisdiction you have
I like federal court.
to- federal.
I hate state courts. Most state statutes will tell you in their state statutes that the only remedy to a person in the state is to file a tort claim. The only remedy,
Okay, a question on that. I've been told if you file straight to federal and you haven't exhausted your state, they'll throw it out.
that all changed a few weeks ago.
You
President Trump signed an executive order saying you no longer need to exhaust your remedy
Can,
in
do you
state
know
court
the
to go to
number?
federal
Is there
court.
somewhere we could find the executive orders that he signed?
Yeah, the White House.
Wait.
Google.
Yes, just Google. Okay, another question. So Chris Hallett says if you have a problem with one of your people, file a petition of remonstrance.
Uh-huh.
Is that different than filing a claim?
Yes,
Why?
a claim is
What-
suing them.
Right?
A
Oh,
petition of remonstrance is asking the legislature to do something about it. I love Chris, and he's doing things the right way.
'cause I thought you had to do the
I will never
remonstrance.
say
then
anything bad about Chris, or Kirk, or anyone else who stands up, all right? But the issue is, what they're doing takes a long time, and you have to be good enough to convince someone else, the legislature. It is the right way, it's the way our founding fathers set up for us to do, and for us to go about it. But they haven't been very successful, except in some counties, okay? John Gentry, man, he's running for state senator in Tennessee now as an E-Clause member, simply because he has beaten this to death in front front of his legislature. He spoke in front of his legislature many times. And he went to the Supreme Court of the United States with it. It cost him $25,000 out of his own pocket to get his case into the Supreme Court, and they wouldn't even hear it. They wouldn't hear it. He had stacks of papers piled up on tables this high. He bought a special copy machine that cost him $15,000 to make enough copies. They have to be written a certain way, they have to be put together a certain way, they have to be bound. You have to have 91 copies sent to the Supreme Court. You had to have it delivered by a truck, a special delivery to get it there.
Why don't we
And
listen to
then
it?
somebody who reviews cases, some bar member, Dion, in the Supreme Court, is not a judge, reviews it and says, no, it's not worth hearing.
So what did he do? I hope
And
he's-
just the filing fees were thousands of dollars to file something in the Supreme Court.
So what did he do then?
And you can get your filing fees back.
No, can't
No.
do that back.
He just jumps in.
You lost it all. So anyway, what is he doing? He keeps going to the state legislature, he keeps going to the state legislature, and now he's tired of it, so he's running for senator of the state of Tennessee. I recommend voting for him, or telling everybody in Tennessee that you know to vote for him, because he would change the country down there.
Okay, so
grass grow under his feet.
No,
moves.
okay,
you
so
bet he does. They
You don't-
use an accountant.
so we don't have to learn the remonstrance process. Now we can go
No,
just
you
straight to
shouldn't.
filing the grievances and with the go federal.
We all should
Or
be
not
filing.
grievances, sorry, file the claim.
I'm telling you, we should all be filing the remonstrances. Every one of us.
But don't expect me. Just
There's
do it.
millions of us. The more the merrier.
But we don't have to wait to go to federal. We can go straight to federal as well.
I think one of the mistakes we're making on filing the remonstrances is we should be getting 200,000 signatures on each one. I think that's a big mistake. And I told those guys that you should get as many people behind you as possible.
They
Go
have
pass
to be
out.
wet ink.
Huh?
Would they have to be wet ink?
Sure,
Or can they be-
probably voters in that district too. You see what I mean?
Yes.
If you're doing one in Tennessee, it's gotta be people from Tennessee.
Yeah.
They should be going around and getting signatures. And here's what we're trying to do. If they, I guarantee you, if John Gentry walked into the Tennessee legislature and he had 200,000 signatures behind his remonstrance, he would have been successful the first time. But he had John Gentry's signature.
Yeah.
I love them, they're doing everything right, but they need to do more. They need to add to it. So yeah, the claim, you have to start with a claim, especially if you're in a state court. Almost every state statute in this country says the only way to gain remedy is to file a tort claim against them. They're telling you.
County court? Is that a state court?
Where, yeah, anything within your state is not federal.
Yeah, this is civil courts.
Not family courts?
You
No,
file-
it's civil court. It's like where you're suing.
You can sue anyone. You can sue family court, you can sue
Okay,
family court
question. Is the
judge.
reason they're doing the remonstrance though is to remove the immunity from the judge? However, there's already immunity. The judges already don't have immunity. I know there's, why?
Read Title 18, 1983.
Thank you. 1983?
Okay.
So they do not have immunity, okay.
How did the people help those that were set up by FBI and other agents, officers that have been locked up like Schaefer Cox? I've offered to help Schaefer Cox many times over the last 4 or 5 years. And he listens to his friend who's an attorney in Alaska. Yeah. Yeah. Schaefer doesn't belong there for sure. goes back to file claim.
Is firing and returning basically stating that you're incompetent?
Yes. Yes. An attorney can only represent an entity, a corporation, a minor, somebody incompetent or somebody infirm. Where does it say they can represent a man who's competent or a woman who's competent? Nowhere. In fact, it states that anyone they represent is a ward of the state and a ward of the court.
So then why do they even do competency tests if you have an attorney? They can just throw you right into a psych ward. You're already
What do you
incompetent.
think they did to Fred?
You are, exactly, you have an attorney.
Yeah. See what I mean?
Correct your status at first.
I'm
That's
working
the
on
first
it.
thing you gotta do. You're exactly right. Do you need a license to practice if you are or want to be a doctor? Man. Do you? I don't, so go ahead. What's the answer?
As long as you change your status, right?
That's right.
You don't need a license to practice anything.
An attorney doesn't have a license to practice. You understand that, right? No state issues a license to an attorney.
They pass the bar exam. That was the
Yeah.
one.
I've seen a lot of YouTubes of trafficking into that.
But if you fix your status, yeah. Like, I mean, technically, you need more hours and more training to be a cosmetologist than you do a police officer.
Wait more.
Way more. I went to cosmetology school for.
You know what they want for police officers, right?
6 months. of-
They want ex-military who follow orders.
Uh-huh.
That's what they want, and the lower the IQ, the better.
That's.
I know several officers who have made mistakes intentionally on their exam,
So they can.
so that their IQ is lower, so they can get a job and feed their family.
I believe that.
Okay.
I need to find a farm.
So when I successfully correct my status, I will no longer have to be licensed to sell real estate.
Oh man, you should have been here yesterday.
I'm also a mother. Responsibility.
So,
So
Yeah.
the question came from, they're shutting, there's some doctors here in Ohio, they're shutting them down because they refuse to vaccinate kids, and so they're going after their license and. shutting down
Absolutely.
as medical.
absolutely. You gotta understand, what is legal is unlawful. Legal is an abomination to God. It says that in the Bible. Okay? We have been so sold and so indoctrinated in this country for all these reasons. What about a contractor who builds houses and has to get licenses and permits to build on someone's private property? See, the problem is it's not private property, it's zoned residential, which is a commercial term.
Well, what would you?
Next summer, I'll be able to build all my running sheds that I want to out my pastures without paying.
Oh, yeah, I built a whole bunch of them, and my neighbors all got together and said he didn't get permits for those. I said,
Nice
the roofs measure 120 square feet. I don't need permits for those. See, I do a lot better than they do.
That's good.
But they all bitched and complained. I had sheriffs showing up on my property. I had the county show up. I just said, hey, you guys operate under Title, 18, Section 242, under the color of law, truck up on down the road,
We're wasting my time because I'm charging you $2,500 an hour.
My license, I have to renew my license every 2 to 3 years, and 3 years ago when I did it was 300, this last time I did it was 600, I doubled it, and it's gonna keep going up.
Right.
And then do you have to pay for
Did you file a
continuing
fee schedule?
education?
You-
100%.
you have- Do you have
I have
any
one.
use for
So
it?
what do you think
Yeah.
to do?
No,
It's genius.
I've learned that I don't need it.
I know, right?
Really?
It's like, is it
I don't
worth it, right?
It's
Dealing
just
with
a
all the,
profit,
there's
you
certain
Well, yeah.
stuff.
You get
Could
pulled
be.
over, send them the invoice.
Other stuff.
You go to jail, send them an invoice.
So we're gonna be going to the proper way for that, business, remember, in the bathrooms. Business center, in the private, so we don't have to.
Private membership association is a good one. All your customers become members of your practice, of EMA. Now here, the medical industry is screwed. Okay, mainly because of insurance and other things. Now, a practice like his, where insurance doesn't cover it anyway, people pay cash, I do a PMA. And I would not call his practice a chiropractic. I would call it a holistic wellness center or something like that, a private membership association.
So I have a.
Now, does that mean he's not gonna have some fights here and there? He will. They'll come and they'll say, what are you doing? You're supposed to be doing it this way, and you're doing it this way. Prove to me that that's right. And you can say, prove to me that's wrong. And if the burden of proof is really on them, not on you. Prove to me it's wrong. Private membership associations have been around forever. And they're what they say they are, they're private. But you have to give full and honest disclosure to your clients, your customers, whatever you call them, patients. They have to become members of the PMA. So when they come in and they fill out their form, it's a PMA form. And it says, you're authorizing to be a private member association. For that, you get these benefits. And the benefit could be something that he gives away anyway. You know, you do this procedure and you adjust their back. The back's a benefit, of course. You come up with your own rules. And then they agree to it and they're members now. That's why people shop at Costco. It's kind of special. You have your own Costco card. You can make little wallet cards. They can carry around and say, hey, we're members of this great holistic center.
They've done that with that machine I did, that developed the machine created a group like that, where you sign up and it's already created because he had to, do that because the FDA came after him for his technology because he did it well, and so he had to change.
Well, then you got a path to follow.
Yeah, right. So it's already set up basically. Yeah.
Do you need malpractice insurance? I would say you need something. An umbrella policy, liability policy, can cover anything that's a liability. So yeah, I would have something. You have to protect your neighbor.
And you said the bonding is a little bit better than insurance like that, or?
Well, it's an umbrella liability bond. So get $1 million bond.
I was curious, so you
And
still believe in
nobody
insurance?
comes after you for your bond, and premiums are just none. I had a contractor's bond. 38 years I had a contractor's bond. Not one single person ever filed this. Ever.
So it's almost like they would have to sue you and that's when your bond is in play?
Right. Right. They gotta make a claim. No one ever came after my bond.
So one more on the insurance. So do you believe in homeowners insurance? And if you can't afford to replace your home, like liability insurance? I mean, you mentioned bond.
Yes. We are supposed to
It
protect
just
us,
protects us and
our
the people.
families,
Yeah.
and our neighbors.
Yeah, I just didn't know, I wanted to make sure there wasn't, because I thought about that.
So I'm a firm believer in figuring out a way to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Why? I'll tell you all something as far as health insurance. The Christian health insurance companies are the way to go. My niece's husband, my niece's husband died about a year and a half ago from pancreatic cancer. And he went through 3 years of hell. And their normal premium from where he worked went up to like $900 some a month. They couldn't afford it, and their insurance company dropped him 90 days after he no longer worked there because he was on chemotherapy and he was in the hospital and he wasn't working. And they dropped him. I didn't even think they could do that, but they did. And so they went through one of the Christian networks $300 a month. And the Christian Network paid out over $500,000. Just kidding.
I mean, that's something that would be great for me, because I never use Bowie out there
Right.
unless it's a
Right.
car accident or something emergency like that.
Right.
And that's what
That you
they
guys
Right.
signed up to do this too.
And what it is, it's just a whole bunch of Christian people going to churches who all put it in.
Fund together and then they draw out of it and support each other as.
Exactly right. How do you protect your kids from forced vaccinations? I think we've covered that. No, I'm serious. I know how I'd protect them. Try it.
We need a postcard.
Back to one. Yeah, just to give it straight back.
I mean, I'd protect them at all costs.
Well, this week was that they were vaccinated without your consent.
The international,
That's why I'm trying to learn that. It's a lot to learn for what little time I have. But we all, somebody, there's got to be somebody out there who wants to take this on and start studying more and help all of us get together in groups, get together in groups on Facebook, and start talking about the environmental court.
can we
The
get,
guy that introduced this to me is an expert in environmental court, and he lives in Arkansas. It's one of the main reasons I wanted to go down to Arkansas. So I got Daniel to get me down there. But he's not the guy. Daniel's not the guy. There's another guy down there. We got together, just talked about this. He's a man, I think he's in his 70s. He worked for the offshore oil rigs for Exxon in Alaska. And they only work half a year. They get paid a lot of money while they're working on those oil rigs offshore. But they only work half a year. He slid in Alaska and he was bored stiff. The state of Alaska came in and said they passed some legislation that said they had to have restrooms in all their state parks. So they put restrooms in. And now they had a problem. How do we keep them clean? How do we clean out those toilets? How do we do that? He said, no problem. I'll start a pumper company. He bought pump trucks. Went around all the state parks, well, half a season, then hired somebody who was on the oil rig for the other half. And it got to be so profitable, and Exxon found out that he had another business and said, wait a minute, you got to be loyal to us. You can't have another business on the side. He said, why? I'm doing it just running just fine, and I'm still doing my job. And they said, no, you either sell it or you quit. And he said, see you later. I don't like spending time out in the ocean in the cold wind and rain and storms anyway. So he expanded his pumper business and stuff. Then he was a very smart man, and he started to design, patent certain aspects of it. Well, pieces of equipment, things like that. He got really well known. Big company out of California said, hey, why don't you sell your company? Come down here and we'll put you on some big projects. And he went on these big projects and he was making some real big bucks and doing these big projects. And one of these big companies like Dow Chemical or something comes in and says, this is our business. Kind of shut it down. At the time we had 5 projects going. He was basically listening his butt because they were putting so many conditions on it and regulations on it and everything. Dow has tremendous electrical power. Doing all kinds of things to stop this man. And finally, he said enough is enough, he retired and went to Arkansas. Well, he learned about the environmental court, he sued for like $5-6 million won. And he
sued
says,
Dow,
the-
Dow,
whoever, I think it was Dow.
whoever it was in California that
Yeah,
was.
but anyway, that's not important, what's happened, right? Not who. So anyway, he said, you know, every building's got a toilet. This courthouse has a toilet. I can shut these courthouses down, I can do all kinds of things through the environmental court. If they've got toilets, they're out of compliance. If they're running water, all I gotta do is go online and look up every chemical that's in that city water system. He says, David, what water company do you have at your house? I said, Avion Water Company out of Bend. He looks up Avion. 3 or 4 toxins in my water at my house. He says, I'll make a few million. Yeah. I said, I'm not in this for money. I want to help you. My goal is to help you. Let's use that court. I said, what does this do for vaccines? I said, we can shut all that down. And he started to proceed to tell me that vaccines are biological weapon warfare. I started researching and looking up. Sure enough, he's right. It's biological warfare.
Wow.
I
Ken,
think
is
there's
that-
so much potential there.
Is that
it's not even
scanned
funny.
somewhere? Do you have that document scanned? Is it like in a
These
file?
are just documents that I printed off the internet, color.
Oh, so we can find this, we can find the case, okay, just so we can, if
Start
we
looking
wanna
at the
study
environmental.
questions.
The only one, I asked them to send me a claim form, and this is what they sent me. Yeah, environmental court, this is a claim form. I wanted to see what, I saw it on the, online, and I wanted to have one. So they mailed me. They said, well, you can get what you asked for. How do you protect your kids if one parent wants the vaccine, the other doesn't? Kick his ass.
That's right.
I don't know what to tell you on that. You know, one of the biggest problems is arguments between husbands and
Right.
wives.
I lost that battle because at the time, I mean, 20 years ago, I was the only one in the world that thought that way, so it was me against the world, and if I was wrong, then I'd be fully liable in everybody's minds, and if they're wrong, then, oh, that's just the way everybody does it.
The only
What
way
if
I
the
learned
kid's
a long
father's a
time
foreign
ago
agent?
is if you want to keep a wife, you say, yes, honey.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't matter what she says. That's the only way it works. There's no other way that works.
No other opinions on vaccine.
How do you deal with old ticket infractions, red light tickets, stuff like that? Just evade them. Send in an abatement. It's an abatement process. You say, hey, I had all these from a long time ago. I just want all this done and over with. How old do we talk? If it's over 7 years, you can say this past the statute of limitations. They're going for any
Is that
effect.
why your stuff falls off if it's stored under 7 years?
If they're less than 7 years, say they're 4 years old, you can say, you know, I haven't paid these because I never really believed I had to. I was operating private, traveling in a private automobile. You guys are operating under Title 18, Section 242. And so why don't we just abate these and call it even?
Tell me this abatement process, what,
It's just called an abatement. You just go and negotiate based upon the way you think and the way you feel.
right there with you, don't go in and who would we be
Yeah, where do you
talking
go
to?
to?
and who
You go in
handles
with your
it.
paperwork.
Yeah,
Go where?
So what court give you the ticket? What court says here, Who's
You have to
asking?
file a motion, but you're for a.
No, you don't file
Or you go to the
motions.
clerk.
I don't even like motions at all. At all.
Wow.
It's an order to move the court. Move your ass along, you're my servant. I'm the boss telling them what to do. I order to move the
I like
court.
that.
I don't file
A
a motion.
motion.
A motion is a beg, it's a plea. It's judge, pretty please. Will you please vote yes or no on this item?
Demand.
And he says, well, yeah, if I got that choice, I'll just vote no.
So do you have to do a notice of appearance to do the abatement?
Huh?
Notice of appearance?
Special.
Set an appointment and then the abatement?
You can do it all in your abatement. I got a really good friend who's an expert at it. You read it, it sounds like he wrote it right out of the Bible, and it debates it all. He's been thrown in jail a dozen times. He's driven his whole life without a license. He's my age or older. He's been stopped, all kinds of stuff. Normally, what he goes to jail for is contempt.
Normally.
Because
That's gonna be.
yeah, because he says, thank you, Judge, for holding me in contempt. It's my opportunity to go preach the gospel to my fellow men. And he starts walking out the
I'm gonna
door.
go teach all the people, that's right.
And he does it. He starts teaching them, and there's been a lot of times the judge says, I hold you in contempt, except you'll go train all the people in the jail.
Well, what is it, where they put you in confinement, where they
His
put you alone?
name's Dave
They put you
Berger.
alone.
Solitary.
His name's
Solitary
Dave
confinement.
Berger. You'll probably see him on Facebook. He's a kick in the butt. David Berger.
Burger
Berger, B-R-U-G-G-E-R. A lot of times when I fly out of town, I park my truck at his house, and he takes me to breakfast, and then we go to the airport. I've known him for years.
Well, I can still have.
Then you drive your truck through a bunch of red lights and just stuff, so you can go to court, so you can go to a bunch of gigs and people.
That way it costs me a breakfast when I leave and a dinner when I get back, but I don't have to pay $15 a day to park my truck here.
It's good. Okay.
She has a pretty impressive collection of the red light tickets we were talking about. I
She
think
is.
just to go
But don't they
meet
take your
our,
driver's license if,
I'm
don't they
surprised he doesn't
suspend
have
your
it.
driver's
He
license?
ran one last
right
night.
now. They've tried
I don't do that very often.
It's right.
$3
I just did it 'cause you were in the
expired,
car.
so I'm like,
Oh.
Well, mine might be for not paying child support and college
Oh,
graduation.
but they're nice for a
So
toll
that's-
ticket, so, I mean,
For a what
a
ticket?
toll ticket, they've suspended my license already. $3.50.
$900.
It's
I
now
would have paid
$900.
the $3 just for the lack of hassle.
I didn't even get the notices, because they sent it to my old address, and then after like 9 months, they sent it to my real address, and then by that point, it was like $800.
Oh.
I would call that usury,
Oh, I
and
know.
I would sue them.
Well, and on
They
top
can't
of
prove
that,
that you were driving the car.
well, and I said that, I was like, can you please provide the picture, because I have never taken
I-
toll in
I-
my life. To take that toll would mean I would have to drive north, like 5 miles, and then down to hit that toll road. So there's no chance in hell that I've ever taken it in that park, ever. I've never done it. I go out of my way to
Tell
avoid
them
tolls.
provide
I
the-
take back roads.
Tell them to provide the picture.
They told me I needed to go down to this one place that was 15, 20 miles away from where I lived. And during these set times, that it was like a 5-hour period, and they wouldn't.
You know all these toll booths are illegal, right?
Well, no, if they're in
Every
the
single
state.
one of them
So
is against the law.
right.
What if-
absolutely.
what if
So
their
now that
state
they've
toll
suspended
is like
my license,
$3.55?
How do I attempt to do this?
And I was
Did
driving
too
on
long?
that,
Did
I
mess
was like-
that up?
Notice the state.
So you go to the courthouse and you say, I'd like to discuss abatement, and they'll put you into the front of the right people.
You do an
Yeah, the ones that-
abatement document,
Abatement document.
and you send it to the court and abate it.
Abatement.
Everything's done by
mail.
by paper.
So mine is that
By paper.
I-25,
So you're like
Let's
me,
start
Lee, I
with
wanna
this
know the
abatement.
exact process, and that's the hard thing, is for me to get
Process
started
is
with
the
the
only thing
process.
stopping me from being
Me-
a god
too.
at this. It's
I
just
need to know the
process and
process.
procedure.
You and I need to hold each
You have
other
an abatement
accountable.
document with some sample type.
Really?
because I have to fix that before I rescind my driver's license.
Mine's just expired.
So the 72 hours, you have the method that I used on my registration ticket where you can do, Now,
Here's one of Dave Berger's statutory abatements.
thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can't believe I had one.
Well, do we need to make copies so you still have it with you in Texas?
Well, yeah, I'm not giving it to him.
Oh.
You've probably
I wanted to read it.
Go to Staples.
you've probably been down a few moments of the USFL videos, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
I
right.
I don't listen to Morse
Okay,
for a reason.
okay, why?
Why?
He's a good guy,
Seems to be knowledgeable.
very knowledgeable, he works very hard. There's an issue with Morse and their religion that I have.
Okay,
And that's that they all want something for nothing. The only reason they learn this stuff or do anything is to get something for nothing,
okay.
to get their money back. They'll go out and buy a car, and then they'll get a loan on it, and then they will or whatever they will do some kind of a process not to ever have to pay for anything.
Yeah.
All the time. They don't pay for anything. I believe in paying our way. To be honest with our fellow men, I don't believe in fraud. If there's fraud and corruption involved, I fight it. But regardless, you don't do it intentionally
Right.
with the attitude that I'm going to go get something free.
I understand your point.
Okay.
Now, procedurally, though, he's probably accurate.
Relative. It's
Yeah.
about 80%. Nobody's 100% my way.
I want, because I got the method for the, I refused this offer contract from his words. And you used different words yesterday that really included what was going on at 242 and free travel and everything else, and the appropriate colors and everything. So this silliness of 45-degree writing and colors and everything else you're doing, I guess that's just to draw attention that it's being written by a man that knows what he's
No,
doing.
that actually goes back clear back to the King's times, 1300s.
Where could we reference this? And there's not a Chicago Styles for this type of writing, so where could we reference this to find out exactly what is right about offsetting a ticket like this?
Oh, what is
It's
right
a
about
banker's
offsetting?
something.
What
It's a
is the
banker's-
correct way to refuse this offer of contract?
It's called a banker's something.
It is, but the issue with the ticket like that is there's probably, I don't know, I know I have 60 pages of case law, probably 10 case laws. Let's just say there's 10 case laws on each page, 60 pages. That says we have the right to travel and they cannot impede us in any manner, anywhere.
Adam Speaks book has many great.
On and on and on. Now, it speaks wonderful, okay? So the process of the ticket is just to show them the officer made a mistake. See, an officer's first question when he walks up the window should be, "Hi, sir, how you doing? Are you operating in commerce or operating in private?"
Wouldn't that be nice?
That should be his first question out of his
Exactly.
mouth. Not can I have
Same
your
thing
driver's
when you
license,
come to
proof of
court.
insurance, registration.
That's a
Because
presumption
everybody's
and an
operating in
assumption.
commerce, 'cause everybody is
Right.
operating.
And his second question
Including my
should,
tacit agreement.
and the second question should be, what have you self-determined your status to be?
Yeah.
Because there's different procedures for different steps. I got a good friend who's an arms dealer for many governments. He helps military get their arms, okay? And he has to ask if they're state national or state or a citizen or what their status is. He has to ask.
Do all. It's just interstate. Oh, they don't know that. Or we should get a license plate that just says we're a national state.
He came to one of my classes, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago. He came to one of my classes, and I'm up here talking about status and stuff. And he's one of the only guys I've met in a long time in my classes who knew everything there was to know about statuses because he has to deal with it every day on every form.
Do you know about the passport delineations? Just distinctions from one passport to another at the point of whatever authority is asking for identification. The star system, is that a thing or not? It's not a thing?
No.
It all
It is
depends on
a
the city
thing.
secretary of state.
It's a thing, it's just not the thing he was thinking it was.
Anymore.
Yes.
Well,
So it's at the discretion of the state secretary of state.
In a Donahue school.
I also believe when you walk into court, they should ask you what jurisdiction you're operating under.
You can
Then it would open
gather
people's
good
eyes.
information from everything. But what I'm gonna tell you
If
is,
people don't know, then they'd be educated, they have
the
their rights to
more you
learn.
do this and you gather from everybody, the more you're gonna find something that you might believe in that's actually wrong.
Sure.
What you wanna do is you wanna keep things as simple as possible. That's the key to the whole thing. For 20 years, I made this business complicated. Then I started to make it simple. Then it was teachable and people weren't getting into trouble. And I don't want people in trouble. So if you can do simple little things, if we can figure out simple little things, those little napkin presentations in various ways, to even defend yourself in front of the judge, where you can nail them down to a specific, what is the law? You have to do that because you have to establish the jurisdictions, the 3 jurisdictions. You've got to establish that because you have to nail them down and make them commit that they're in contract law. You have to. So then you show jurisdiction because that's the Bar Association has been misusing that term for years. I didn't know that for a long time. When I finally figured out that they've been misusing that, I found out they've been misusing it on purpose. That made me mad. So now, that's one of your priorities, to establish juris, which is the right law. You nail it down to its contract law, now you can rebut presumptions, assumptions, and hearsay. Tacit agreement, and you can say, look, here's the 8 elements of the contract, bring forth the contract. If it doesn't meet these 8 facts, not hearsay and presumptions, but facts, then we're done here. And you win cases over and over and over again based upon fact. A timeline of what happened, what is the actual facts, what took place. Because they'll just tell lie after lie after lie, and they'll hang you by
You
it.
did the 12 presumptions and 8 facts on the first day, right? Let me get that for you.
And he's gonna email those.
He's gonna,
Oh, I
Yes.
think I
Is
emailed
that,
it.
yeah, I haven't, I slept last night.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I mean, those are keys,
That is key, yes.
you know? Operating private versus public terminology.
yeah, I just wanted to, what kind of gets me into trouble? Like, what are the biggest ones on that one?
Thousands.
Hundreds, thousands. Is there a good resource for that? And what are the clear distinctions of working in private versus
Commerce, are you making money at it? That's it.
Technically, it's over interstate commerce. States can only regulate interstate commerce. That's why New York and Illinois got sued, and they're moving all their toll booths to the operators on interstate roads. Because someone on the interstate, if I want to drive from Oregon to Maine on an interstate, there should never be a fee. Because I'm traveling through, and I'm traveling through on federal property. The interstates are federal property. But if I exit the interstate, they can toll me right there. They can tax me for coming into their state to do business.
Okay, but you mentioned that tollways also, so state tollways are illegal.
All tolls are technically illegal
Right.
because what does the Constitution say?
preamble says I have the right to pursue happiness and move towards peaceful assembly. So at any time I'm moving towards peaceful assembly, I cannot be intercepted.
It's your right of locomotion.
So what do you guys do? Do you not pay tolls? What are you going to do? What do you do, David? Do you
I
go
blew
through
them
toll
on the way back
booths
last time.
and you just blow them off and they send you stuff and you send it back?
Well, the only thing that can hold up is your license. So if you're traveling freely and you don't care about a license, it doesn't make any difference.
Well, but if you need a license for certain times, you might need a license. What do you do?
You know when to,
Do you
no
pay
police
tolls?
officer is going to see my license ever
True.
unless
And you can
I'm
use
in
it.
a semi hauling a load of hay. That's the only time I need a license.
Well,
If I
that's my
didn't haul
point.
any hay,
Right.
when I cut down to 10 horses, I won't need a semi anymore. I'm gonna sell that sucker. My license is going out the window. Okay?
So you only have a license
They don't
because you
card
actually
you.
do driving.
That's right, I have to.
Okay. So those of us who don't.
But when
don't.
not 99 times out of 10, I've driven clear across the country with just that.
Sure.
They will never see my driver's license.
So who cares if they suspend
Is that
it?
a second?
But you go through toll booths without paying. You don't have a toll iPass or whatever, a toll pass thing. You don't pay on
That's-
anywhere you're driving. You don't pay tolls.
Yeah, told me where to get.
Do I not pay tolls?
That's a question.
Ask the state of New York, because of 8 days of not paying tolls. They sent me a cute little letter.
Okay.
Said you owe us $175.83. And I wrote across it with a red Sharpie. Your offer to contract is not acceptable while I'm traveling in private. You cannot impede my right of locomotion.
Is that what I do with the red light tickets?
You operate under Title 18, Section 242, under the color of law.
If they give you a
Truck
ticket on the
down the
spot,
road.
you can cause them a whole lot of
And
grief.
that did it, no problem.
What?
You send it back.
I mailed it off.
And no.
No, they don't.
My friend Aubrey gave his state ID that he carries instead of a driver's license, and they put his state ID number in the driver's license number, and he came down on them for fraud on a form, and I mean, just held him 8 ways from Sunday, and they, again,
Okay. This is a little
That's
list
good, you're
I
right,
came up with. Okay? It's law. Right law equals jurisdiction equals words. Land, air, water.
Love it.
Land,
You've seen
air, water. Common, mankind. Ecclesiastical canon. Admiralty, commerce. Equity, trust. Contract, private, familia, public. Man, soul, dead person. Trade, heir, corporate. Autograph, grantor, signatory. Elector, prayer. Voter, self-governed, governed by higher power, governed by others. See, I did this to tell you the differences. Traveler, ambassador, driver, operator. See, if you want to operate in ecclesiastical laws upon the highways, you're an ambassador of God.
That's right.
Ambassador of Jesus Christ. That's right. I'm sure Dave's paperwork says in there he's an ambassador of God.
first page.
Under land, you're a petitioner settler. Under air, you're an acceptor or an abater. Under water, you're a plaintiff or a defendant. You're a trader or exchanger. Under land, you're a trustee or a beneficiary under air, and you're a creditor or a debtor under water. Under land, blood, sweat, and tears. Under air, heartache, love, and emotion. Under water, greed, fear, and lust.
Why do we eat fish?
Under land, labor, donate. Under air, guide, give, and tithe. Under water, rule or control. Under land, you inhabit. Under air, you exist. Under water, you reside.
Design resolution.
You're a being or a body. You're an angel or a devil. You're a citizen or a citizen.
Too much language.
That's
One's
citizen.
capital, one's lowercase.
You're stating who you are.
These are just jurisdiction. They're the diction that you use in each juris. Okay. Earth under law, land. Heaven and hell under air. Paper under water. Constitutions and treaties under land. Commandments and testimony under air. Statutes, policies, and codes under water. Supreme law under the land. Superior law under the air. Bylaws under the water. Natural rights, God-given rights, chattel or slave rights, which are called civil rights. Civil rights are slavery rights. Unalienable, inalienable rights under land. Granted or promised, guaranteed rights under God. Privileges, civil rights under law. Limited immunity under land. Full immunity through repentance and forgiveness under God. No immunity in water.
Okay, can you email that to Steve too? Or can you email that to us?
You can, or you can just,
Probably not.
really? Didn't show it first. What's your email?
CHRI. Steve.
Okay.
Christmas.
I meant you,
Maybe I
Christine.
can send it to you
You're
too.
gonna send us
And
all
then we
this
can
stuff.
send it out.
Private.
She's gonna send a copy of this to me.
She's got it.
She's got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Hers is and hers in it.
Awesome.
You guys can share it.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
That's Christine.
Third-party collection proof of claims. No primitive contract.
Okay, question. So I had a $10 bill from a doctor that I refused. I didn't pay it out of principle. It's this cancerous stuff on my neck that 2 years ago, a doctor told me it was stupid, go away, don't do anything. So I just didn't pay her $10 copay. But they never asked for it when I went in anyways. But then they sent me a bill for it and I just threw it in with every month I got one and I'm like, screw you. And I meant to write him a letter saying, you know what, you're a terrible dermatologist, so I'm not paying your stupid $10 copay anyways.
And you
I
should have did
didn't.
that within 72
I
hours.
know. I'm the procrastinator that won't do stuff on time with paperwork.
What if you don't?
So I didn't, so got sent to collections. I got a collections letter in the mail. I haven't done anything with it. So
Mr.
I have
Bill
great
Collector.
credit, so I don't want it, it's gonna bring my credit report down, right?
Mr. Bill Collector,
Even if it
Credit
was a few
report.
months ago though, it's not within 72 hours.
don't worry. Mr. Bill Collector,
Do I-
did you pay off the $10 to the doctor? Yes or no?
Just
If you did, thank you very much for that gift. I appreciate it. I needed it at this time. But you and I have no privity of contract.
Okay, but can they still, so if we do that, can that still be a mark against our credit rating sitting out there?
Then you can rebut it at the credit bureau. Same thing. Yeah, no privity of contract, get it removed. Experian, don't remove it. TransUnion, don't remove
Experian,
it.
okay, I haven't,
So,
I know. Those
things are, it's always.
Student loans are a whole different animal because they're government backed. If you had a private student loan, which there ain't very many of them out there, it does count. But almost all student loans are government backed.
I need to figure it out.
I'm not.
Prove it's usury. Do I have to refute my citizenship before I rescind my voter's registration? Any voter could rescind their voter's registration at any time. Just because you're a citizen doesn't mean you have to vote. But you have to do it before you can be an elector.
VFWs came in?
All the way to hell up there.
They're actually a military branch organization.
They're running their own lottery, which
Normally, they can hear.
just out of curiosity, I encourage all of it.
Wait, what? What is,
Running their own lottery.
who's running lottery? The VFW?
Yeah.
Oh, the Queen of Hearts. Queen of Hearts.
What's that?
Oh, it's great. Y'all get together, not in our time. It's gambling.
Understand something. This question says, can I get bond insurance on a vehicle that is not in my name? You don't get bond on a vehicle. You're bonded. If you're driving, you're liable, you're bonded. Your bond will pay.
When you say bond, that's just insurance to an insurance company, right? That's what you're talking about.
But there's bonding companies, there's insurance companies that sell bonds.
Is a bonding company less expensive than an insurance company?
Way.
Oh, really? I mean, I got
If-
USAA, so.
If you went and got a 100, 300, 100 policy
Uh-huh.
with State Farm on a car, it's probably around $90 a month if you got a decent car. $90 a month. How much is that? It's almost $1,100 some dollars a year, right? To go get a $1 million umbrella liability bond, $300 to $600. Is
So that's just while you're doing anything while you're in the vehicle, for anything, right? It would cover, it's an umbrella policy.
liability.
No matter what
Anytime
do.
you cause harm to someone else, you are liable. And if they come after you, I don't care if it's for a dog bite, somebody falling off one of your
I never
horses.
got that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you probably pay a lot on your homeowner's insurance
Oh,
for
I
that
do.
horse insurance.
So remove that and just get my own umbrella policy on myself. Oh, yeah, I pay a
You
lot.
see what I mean?
And it would cover my
You know what rich
vehicle
people
too.
do, don't you? Rich people get the absolute minimum insurance on everything that they possibly can. And then they get a big umbrella liability bond.
But we won't need insurance once we remove our title or our plates and registration from the vehicle. Insurance won't be necessary.
Yeah, but you still want to protect yourself.
But you still want to get your bond.
To protect whoever you hit.
Well, exactly, but the bond will do that.
Yeah.
And I can get rid of my
In my industry, they
liability.
require call it a 2 plus 2.
No, I
It's
think
2
I-
million plus 2 million for something else if you do it. I think I could do all that in a bond. It's good enough.
If I have my homeowner's insurance, no, they don't require my trainer's insurance. So you're right, that's only for myself. I don't have to have that. What companies, how do you find a bonding company?
I use Century Insurance in Bend. It's just a great big insurance company that represents hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies. They're not like
They're a broker.
State
They're a
Farm.
broker.
They're a broker. And they find the best bond price every year.
I use Meltzer.
And you just-
So bond broker, is that what you're saying?
Not like jail bonds.
No.
Now you gotta experience with that.
You
but
do
no,
that
no, I'm just kidding.
No, I did.
Yeah, with USAA celebrate, can you get bonds through USAA?
I do, because
And
I'm
you
a
said $1
military
million
brat.
Yeah,
I'm
me
a
too.
military
So
brat.
$1 million liability policy would be enough. I guess that is enough. But you're right, I'm paying
You don't
for
think
it.
it's
I'm
enough?
paying for it for that, I'm paying for it for the truck, I'm
They might-
triple, quadruple paying for it.
If you got good credit, you can get $5 million loans. You can get whatever you think is necessary. I mean, if you live in a $10 million home and you drive a Hummer or something, you know,
Yeah.
have a $150,000 living quarters horse trailer like I had.
Of course I do.
Like I had. I had to sell it.
Everything I have is worth so
But,
much.
yeah.
Think of it this way, though. My friend Dave crashed a truck the other day, and his doctor bills were exceeding $800,000 to this date. So it's one truck wreck. I mean,
Yeah.
you can hit that $1 million without to
Yeah,
somebody
but I
else.
think my
Yeah.
automobile policy's only $1 million.
If he got a truck wreck, most car insurance does not go that high.
Exactly,
They
mine
have
only
like a
goes to,
$300,000 limit. So
exactly,
he's
your
gonna
health
get stuck
insurance.
with,
He is. Well,
How
he did it to
million?
himself too, which is the worst. If somebody else had hit him, it would be a whole other story. But I'm just saying, $1 million goes quick.
But that's why, that's health insurance he chooses to have if he wants to, or
But
he's
you
self-insured.
understand.
You're right.
it's $1 million bond, that's $1 million a year, one time.
Is it aggregate, so it's per event, per event, or per
No, per year.
year you get?
So if you have 5 events, you better not go over $1 million.
But at the end of the year, it
Most people
calculates back
don't
to
even
you.
have one.
And they won't cancel you if, I mean, I've never even had an incident, but.
All right,
Sure, knock on.
getting rid of credit
There's
card
no
debt.
wood around me. Cardboard, right? It's wood.
Getting rid of credit card debt. You have to let it go into collections. How does that affect your credit? Once it goes to correct collections, it's easy to prove. There's no primitive contract, and then you can go to the credit bureau and have it removed. Does it affect your credit? Yeah, for a short period of time. We'll go through that process, maybe 60 or 90 days.
Oh my gosh. Wait a second. So instead of people going back.
Or, if you want to handle it before going to collections, you have to prove the fraud. You basically got to take them to court and say they did a fraudulent thing. And let me tell you something. Some attorney wrote that credit card application that you didn't read, you just signed it because you wanted the money. And they wrote it in such a way to put all the liability on you and none on them. So you probably lose that lawsuit.
Well, and again, that's where, that goes into where maybe the boards would do that, but that's principle, that's doing the right thing. You bought the stuff, pay for it.
Right. And I believe that too.
I do too.
I believe in paying for things if they're not involved in fraud or corruption.
Right.
So after
Okay.
collections,
What if it was my husband who was involved in it?
after collections.
Well, if you're incurring someone else's debt, that would be a different story, right? I mean, well, then there, if you didn't purchase the items, then I think as far as principle, that would be fair.
You are
I
actually.
mean, according to my principle.
That
It's.
8 parts of
Are
the
you still
contract
married to
that I
your
sent
husband?
out.
What?
He's
Your
got a
attorney
copy.
husband?
Get it
Yeah.
printed.
Are you still married to him?
Explains privity of contract.
Hey, I'm.
Give me a break.
Are you still married?
Now, is that even worth it in
Oh,
trying?
you can't get divorced. I'm 16 years later attorney, so yeah.
Let me tell you something. I believe in it. I do not believe anyone's figured out how to actually make it work. However, I know some people it works for sometimes. When it begins to work all the time for someone, I'll listen to what they have to say. But I studied that. I did the UCC 1, 12, 13, 15 years ago, somewhere in there. I went through the whole secured party creditor craft, and I can't think of one instance where it did me any good.
Okay.
And if that's the issue, then great. Now, the Bays and the L's, all the Moorish people, they use that to try and buy the Corvette.
I don't want to do that.
You know,
I'm fine with taking care of myself. My only issue is when I first went to school for that stuff, I did it because I wanted to do. But if I went I did that. 6 weeks after starting school, I had emergency surgery. I had an issue that day. My dad basically told me that you need to finish what you started. You never finished anything in your life. You never finished what you started. So I finished school.
Right.
And now you're an accountant, right? Is that your accountant? That's awesome.
I work for my dad.
Oh my gosh.
Right up until there.
He's been grooming me for this position my entire life. And
What did you tell me yesterday? I hate my job.
there's lots of things I like about it, but writing an $85,000 check to the government because $25,000 was in penalties and all this other stuff, and seeing how he does his business and how the government does it, he literally told me to my face that I think he's turning into an anarchist. He doesn't want to pay that tax, and I want to find ways to limit his liability.
You know, I gotta tell you something. I'm a firm believer that not everyone can be self-governed.
I agree.
On the other hand, I absolutely believe in anarchy. Because if you don't, you're not following God's law. But there are some people that can't handle it. They can't handle it. So do I believe in self-government? Yes. Do I believe in government? Yes. Now, the issue is, that's the whole purpose of our founding fathers limited government. The main purpose of the United States, the reason it was created, was to protect us from invading armies. That's it. That's the main purpose. To secure our blessings of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. To secure our rights. We, the people, asked our states to sign an agreement creating the federal government to provide us with 19 essential governmental services and no more. 18 of them are clearly listed in the first pages of the Constitution. The 19th is listed in the preamble of the Constitution. So there's 19 services we agreed to pay for and no more. The and no more, I can't say this enough, the and no more is the most important part of the whole agreement.
Yeah.
We said we need this, and this, but we don't need anything else. From then on, we're self-governed, or we're governed by our state and our localities, where we can direct our government. See, that's why I drew the bottom up form of government instead of the top down, because government is supposed to be at your townships and your parishes and your.
Decentralized to local environments.
That's right, because and the reason why is so that the people can afford to affect government, to effectively manage government. And that's why I explained yesterday, you know, it cost me $10 to go over here to my little city council and spend some time and affect government. If I go to the county, it might cost me $20. If I go to the state, it might cost me $100 or $200. If I go to the federal, it could cost me thousands because I got to take 25, 30 people or more before they'll even hear me. So all those people need airline tickets and hotels, transportation. And that's the whole purpose of why our government was founded as a bottom up.
I talked to the Moores a bit, and one of the things that they're talking about with this, you know, buying a vet, writing it off and all this stuff, is they said if it was gold and silver, we would absolutely play by the rules. But since this is monopoly money with nothing but debt-based nonsense, we're going to take advantage of it all the way to the bone.
And that's how they justify it.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, have real money. Okay.
Yes. There's no real money though. I mean, what they're saying is with the fractional reserve or fractional lending, you're not taking anything from anyone because it's just a big balloon that's going to grow no matter what. Of course.
Okay, but here's where they're full of crap.
Okay.
Car company produces X number of cars.
Right.
The workers on that assembly line have to get paid.
Sure.
they have to make enough money off those cars to pay those folks. The guy that built the building and built the assembly line has to get paid. The guys that made all the machines on the assembly line have to get paid. All these people get paid. When they don't pay for a car, they're stealing from all.
They're paying for the car through their bond. Otherwise, they would have been double paid for that car,
Prove it.
right?
Prove they are.
They are. But if they're right, they are being paid by bond
bankruptcy.
anyway.
Prior to the 1999 bankruptcy, guys like me could get a black card from the trade that we could go buy some if we needed. At the 99 bankruptcy, they tied up all the cessed QBs for the national debt. That's why they keep us perpetually in debt. We're under Chapter 13 bankruptcy related organization all the time.
Thanks to that even room.
No, we're
Thanks to Edward Mandel House.
Yes, yes.
No, we're talking the recent debt, we're talking the
I'm
recent.
talking about all of it. It all started with Edward's plan and Nelson Aldrich. The Aldrich plan was the monster coming out of the Bible. It's predicted in the Bible. It's one of the events that has happened in history. You can prove the Bible over and over and over again. Is
that the monster in
That's why I
Revelation
keep
12?
bringing it up. You can prove the Bible over and over again. When the monster rises up out of the sea,
Yeah.
it was the octopus rising up out of Jekyll Island. It's the
And are you talking in the 1999? Are you talking that?
No. 99
When is
is cause and effect. Bankruptcy is. I developed this whole PowerPoint presentation just to teach people the history of how we got to where we are today. It's the actual documented history of everything that goes.
Like, what do we have to do to be able to? Wow. Look at that.
And it's
Would that-
multiple,
oh my
it's
gosh.
multiple parts, but I'm gonna show you something. There's the Aldrich plan. Written, drawn up on Jekyll Island.
Leviathan.
I want to learn the whole history of it. I can send this to you.
Please do.
Please, can you send it to this, to Christine?
When I first made this presentation, I thought, oh, I could get this in a group in about 3 hours. 5 hours later, we were still halfway into it, so I broke it into a couple different parts. But the first part's all history. You'll like this one.
Yeah.
They had a sense of humor.
We're gonna sit around TV and watch
Oh
watch
my
this
gosh, party at my house next weekend.
Yeah.
like a yeah.
The Federal Reserve sense of humor, right?
Oh, shoot. Well, no, we'll fly to Colorado. I want to go west.
Here's our 3 flags.
Okay.
How do you feel about
Question.
how do you feel about the vertical stripe?
Exactly, the
Civil flag?
peacetime.
That's our civil flag of peace. I
Yes,
fly it
but
in
the
front of
50
my
stars,
house.
it was actually the eagle or phoenix in the field when you were coming in shore maybe 120 years ago. Vertical
All
stripes were
flags
civil.
change over time.
But
Even
there's
this
only
flag
been
has
3.
changed over time.
But there's only
Okay.
been 3 years that flag's been.
If you look at the Coast Guard flag,
It's our maritime war flag that we use right
the
now.
Coast Guard flag is this exact flag with the Coast Guard logo right in the middle of it.
Wasn't that the
So-
Okay, so you fly the vertical flag?
Spit it out, girl.
Is it just the Dutch East Indies?
No.
No, not the peace time, our flag, our current one.
That's the maritime war flag.
Well, yeah, but it originally started off as
One of the yellow fringes in there.
True. True, true,
And the
true.
other one's federal.
Very determined.
More time.
Here's where the government confiscated all of our gold and silver. This is a picture of an actual poster.
Okay, hold on. Back to the flags, David. What'll happen, like, what kind of trouble am I asking for to fly that vertical stripe flag?
Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely.
Except I can explain it to all the people that ask
It's
what
in
it's
front of
for.
my house, right?
That's conversation time.
Because we've only had 3 years of peacetime, right?
And if you were to come into shore 120 years ago, you'd be able to
That's-
identify buildings right off the bat. Like, okay, this is a government building, this is a private building, this is a private house, this is a private business, this is, government business. You could see by the flags, and it was fine because everybody knew the difference. Now nobody knows the difference.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so I want a presentation from you about all the flags. That's gonna
She
be-
was just bringing up the what was it? India.
I
I don't know anything about the whole topic.
Is that gonna be a red flag for
Because the
like
Dutch, this is
police?
the one that I was.
No pun intended.
Union Jack, yeah.
Because the Dutch actually conquered the English in
They did.
18th century.
The Dutch beat the
I mean,
English
is it a
over
red
your
flag?
butt.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like
So
what
we've
kind of
actually-
trouble am I asking
this-
for? Like, are they
British
going
rule
to
is
try to
actually
harass you a
Dutch.
little more? It's okay because as long as.
An Icelandic police officer explains why his country's police are so nice and rarely have to use violence. He says, we jailed or kicked out all the corrupt politicians and bankers so we don't have to enforce laws made by tyrants.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of what America does.
Yes.
Who said
I
that?
thought that was a great statement. An Icelandic police officer said that.
Islamic?
Yes.
Icelandic.
Icelandic. Oh, I'm like.
You're like, wow, that's kind of.
Yeah, I'm a
Wow.
farm boy from Middletown. Sometimes, just not that clear. So anyway, it explains why his country's police are so nice and rarely have to use violence. That's exactly the same statement the Chinese took. Is that their government does not bother the Chinese people.
But they're communist, right?
Their government's communist. Our government's pretty
Yeah, we're
communist.
communist.
Okay?
Yeah.
They do though, like they'll stop services based on your necessities. If you don't sleep a certain number of hours or work this, proper amount or whatever, they don't let you take train, to travel.
Wait, in China?
China.
Your Facebook score determines
There
if
is
you can get on
so
the.
there is so much
Sesame.
misconceptions. There's so much misconceptions about China. I had many misconceptions about China because I listened to what my government had to say about China.
Believe that.
What about organ
But
trafficking?
when I started going to China, I learned differently. You almost never see a police officer. You'll never see one on the highway. You'll only see plywood cutouts of a police car telling you to drive safe and protect your neighbor. It says that, right?
Wow.
Drive safe and protect your neighbor. Okay. You go to the big train stations, and I'm talking 500,000 people a day walk through these train stations or more. The police officers in the train stations drive. They're pretty. They're like a fancy golf cart. They couldn't catch anybody if they wanted to. I could outrun one. And none of them wear guns. No. They wear blue shirts and tan pants with a blue stripe down the shirt and it's identified as a police officer there on their back. No tasers, no guns, no flashlights, no nothing. And they're nice. They ask you if you need directions. Are you a tourist? You need directions. Want me to take your picture? Yeah. And you walk through town, downtown Nanjing or Shanghai or Beijing, walk through town, police officers on about every fifth block on the corner, helping little old ladies across the street, giving tourist directions. No guns, no tasers, no nothing. It's the only police officer I saw in several trips to China. None. I go to lunch with groups of engineers, 2-hour lunches, pull up into a parking spot at this restaurant, and sidewalk. People 14 or 15 wide on the sidewalks from here to that wall. And there were people walking back and forth. I don't know how many thousands of people walking back and forth. The engineers pulled their car up, the bumpers right here at the edge of the sidewalk. It's hot. They waved their windows down. $2,000 laptop sitting on the seats. First time they did that, I got out of the car, they're all walking in towards the restroom and go, hey, we're gonna roll up the windows, you got your computer sitting on the seats. They looked at me and says, why? No Chinaman reaching that car. No Chinaman stealing anything. I said, why not? He said, because 25 Chinamen walking down the sidewalk and tackle them, beat them to death, hold them for the police.
Wow. Because they're allowed to.
Citizens
They're not allowed
arrest.
to here.
Citizens arrest.
Yeah, here you'll get sued by the guy that you
Yeah.
jump. Yeah.
Police themselves. That's
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Now, what
Police
about Tiananmen
themselves.
Square? How'd that come to be then? They're so,
That's where a Chinese citizen went to Tiananmen Square to protest
Yeah.
the government.
Right.
Now, if you're coming after the government, now they're gonna have some interaction. But if you're just out there living your life, they'll leave you the heck alone.
I wonder why that.
Because they
person
get
felt so
paid well.
compelled to.
Plus, they all drive black Audis. Depending on their level of government, you're driving an A4, an A6, an A7, or an AA. And the citizen can spot them a mile away. Because none of the citizens will buy black Audis. But the government all drives black Audis.
Not good enough.
Yeah. You think they drive some Chinese made car? No, they like Audis.
Austrian engineer.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
That's awesome.
But here's another thing with China. You go to China, you see Chevys, and Fords, and Cadillacs, and Pontiacs, and Buicks, and you see every other car made in the world. Peugeots, Citroens, French cars. You see every brand of automobile, BMWs, Porsches. You see everything.
What about Japanese?
Stuff we wouldn't even know exists. Oh yeah, Toyotas, Nissans, everything's in China. They import every vehicle. There's Russian cars in China. There's Korean cars in China. Kias, so on. I'm telling you, their people are free to buy what they want. When was the last time you saw a Citroen dealership here in this country?
Personally.
40 years ago.
Yeah, 40 years ago. What happened? We decided not to trade vehicles with the French. That was a treaty agreement that stopped those dealerships. They can't import any Citroens. The dealerships can't exist. So all the Citroen dealerships went away. It's our government that limits us, that regulates us, not China's. So anyway, this whole entire presentation, anyway, this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, I have a question, sort of, that I didn't write on the paper that has to do with what you have in your hand. Do you, okay, so you went to where all the records were, and you read all of the, you came to Illinois and read all Abraham Lincoln's buddies' letters.
No, I didn't come to Illinois.
They said you came to Illinois to read, or you didn't, you did that in Washington?
National Archives.
National Archives? Oh, I thought, okay. So, you read them. Do you have copies of any of that, or did you write down, or is it all just in your head? Are you able to take photos of stuff in the National Archives?
Yes. They will allow you to do that.
So, is this a question I should be asking you?
Should I? This was before we had cell phones.
So you don't have record of what you read?
Yeah, it's all in the National Archives, every bit of it.
Well, that's what I mean.
I
It's
got
there.
probably 350,000 documents on this computer. I mean,
Right.
go to my
So there's
iBooks,
a
there's
lot of-
hundreds of books on my computer.
So
I've
there's
read
a-
them all.
So there's a lot of stuff.
I
that-
spent lots of time
I was just
in
curious
my
if you
local
had-
library.
It's been microfiched. You can,
Can
from
we
right
get
there,
it
you can
from
get
the
most
National
of it.
Archives?
Yeah.
You can get it from
Yeah.
the library,
people
or
It's
working-
being
from,
digitized now too. You can
or
actually access it
on
online.
we can get
This
it.
is a letter
There's 6
from,
people 24 hours a day microfiching and archiving.
Yeah, but they're going to keep what they want. Like what he read 35 years
They wouldn't have
ago.
been able to go there.
Going to be different than what they have now. That they want us
people,
to read, right?
people who find old letters and journals and stuff in estates, estate sales, in people's attics, all over this country. They sell them to collectors. Collectors sell them to the government. They sell them to the Smithsonian, they sell them to the National Archives, and those letters are all there. They're all there. You can go through and find letters and journals of people who lived during any time in our country's history. There's letters from Abe Lincoln. There's letters from everyone.
I was just wondering if they're that unlawful of a government that they hide the stuff that they don't want us to
The
know.
only real thing the Smithsonian has hidden from us is the Egyptians of America.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of Egyptian settlements right here in America.
Wait, Egyptian what?
Settlements.
Settlements?
You want to have fun. If you guys are scuba divers
Yeah.
like I am, go scuba dive off the coast of Puerto Rico. There's an entire pyramids underwater. They're beautiful.
Wow.
The tops of those pyramids are only about 25 feet under the surface. The tops. Bottoms are 200 feet under the surface.
So how, as the continents changed, they got covered with water?
And I got covered with water.
They don't have to hide stuff. Look how many of us are seeking it. They don't care.
Hey, there are 3 pyramids in Ohio that somehow were completely buried with dirt. But because of our satellites from Oxfam, they discovered those 3 pyramids. And if you look at where the top of the pyramids are, they measure the same distance of a triangle as the pyramids of Gaza.
And they're on ley lines.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are they
Yes.
saying? But aren't those alien things too, where they're saying it's got to
they're
be
Egyptian.
aliens?
No, it's Enoch.
Here, let me keep
Enoch.
talking for a
You know what I
minute.
mean?
Let me keep talking. Burroughs Cave in Missouri is a farm. There was a flood. Had a little bit of a landslide on his property. He looks kind of at the landslide, and underneath there's this little rock ledge, and he saw that it was hollow, so he crawled down in. Thousands of feet of caves filled with Egyptian artifacts and sarcophaguses, and one of the most important things is a big round black slate rock. Let me tell you about this rock. This rock's a map, and it had the Rocky Mountains, it had the Grand Canyon drawn in, it had the Egyptian settlement that's on the north end of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Do you know the Hopi Indians' DNA is Egyptian? It's the only Indian tribe in America that's Egyptian DNA. It showed Florida, the Gulf of Mexico. It showed the entrance of the Mississippi. It showed up the Tennessee River Valley where there's been Egyptian mines discovered and mining equipment. Egyptian.
This is all pre-initial flood stuff, or
Into
pre-last
Mammoth.
flood, right?
No?
This is time of Christ time.
Okay.
So within
Okay.
2,000 years, like Mammoth Caves, is
2,000
that
years
all?
ago. The Ohio River Valley is all mapped out. The Mississippi's mapped out. Clear up past Minneapolis. It's mapped out a river that leads right to Palmyra, New York. You know what's famous about Palmyra, New York? Joseph Smith discovered golden plates in the Hill Cumorah, buried by whom? They have it marked on the map. Now we know who.
And they've already dug up the gold.
Oh yeah, Joseph Smith dug up the gold plates. He translated them, and it became the Book of Mormon, which is a history book of the people who lived in the Americas at the time of Christ. That's all it is a history book, just like the Bible is a history book. And it's the people who lived during the time. Whether it was translated correctly, who knows? The Bible wasn't either. There's some little things missing, okay? However, it was still a history of people who lived in America at the time. It was written on gold plates in the same type of handwriting that the Bible was written in the Middle East. So you start to put this stuff together. Let me tell you something. One of the first things I learned in intelligence is there's a cave on the north side of the Grand Canyon that was taken, a Mormon pioneer was taken there by a Hopi Indian. and it was full of Egyptian artifacts, full of sarcophaguses, and they think two of them. It was Cleopatra and Mark Antony. You know, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, when they committed suicide, their bodies and tombs had never been found. They think they're right there on the north end of the Grand Canyon. The irrigation system that was built on the north side of the Grand Canyon, any archaeologist will tell you that could have supplied enough farmland for 10,000 people. Where did it come from?
Well, what's the settlement below, the settlement below?
Since 1920, the Secret Service has been guarding that cave.
Check out Los Alamos.
No one can go in it. It's been guarded. The Smithsonian took most of the artifacts. They put them in storage warehouse. Just talked them into building a museum, and they're going to build it in Florida. It's going to have all of the Egyptian stuff in the museum.
Are they gonna admit it came from the United States?
It's going to be all
If that's our land, then why can't we go there? How can they guard our land from us, we the people?
It was a secret they were guarding because it didn't fit the narrative. It didn't fit Christopher Columbus.
The first president was black. The first president of America was black. Obama's no big
Who's that?
deal.
Which one?
He was actually like,
Wasn't that,
Was he?
Who was it?
Frederick Douglass?
there's 14 presidents prior to Washington.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Because Washington was supposedly the first. I'm not a historian.
17
I haven't been a historian until
1776.
met you.
We arrived in this country 1607 and 1620 in Massachusetts, 1607 in Virginia. Okay? You don't think we had any kind of government between 1607 and 1776? That's 170 years. Yeah, we had a government.
Well,
It was
black,
called
do you
the
mean
Confederate
African, or are
States
you
of
talking
America.
Egyptian.
Indian?
Egyptian.
Or
Black.
American Indian?
No, Egyptian.
This
Oh
question,
my gosh.
But it's further.
Northern Africa.
Okay, just south of Pagosa Springs, Colorado, that whole, what's that reservation called? The Pagosa Springs, Colorado, south of that and west of that, what's that whole thing called, that whole reservation called? The Mayan,
you're talking about where all the Mayan ruins and stuff are.
yeah, what's that called?
They're not Mayan ruins, they're
We have you. We have
It's that big
Taos.
that big reservation.
Taos,
that you go visit.
Albuquerque, New Mexico is the largest existing civilization of them. But the Four Corners area is just filled with, there's Montezuma's Castle in Arizona, there's all
So
those
those all
cliff
sort of
dwellings.
look, yeah, the cliff dwellings, those are all sort of
In
like,
New Mexico, go to San Miguel's
Egyptian
church,
type.
Right.
circa 1450. Down the street is called Old House, circa 1250. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, 1492, found churches and houses and shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some churches and what?
That's one way to put it.
Churches
All right.
and houses and shit.
This question, somebody's gonna have to kind of add to it, decipher a little bit. Taxes, go to HR with form. Does that include assets? Tell me what you meant when you asked that question. Who asked it? If you volunteer to do that, you can have taxes taken out of your check. All of our taxes are voluntary.
I don't, well, I don't use it.
Because you filled out a W-4. You filled out the improper form.
Which one is
W8.
now? What if like my payroll company CDP does not accept that? They have to accept it. But they were telling me that if we have a person that is tax exempt, that they cannot handle that. That
They
I
can't
have-
handle it?
Yeah, they.
Are they incompetent?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the only excuse. This is an IRS form.
Great, great.
Anything put out by the IRS, they should be able to handle where they're incompetent.
Okay, well, I will use that. Thank you.
I'm
Trying to
serious.
talk to my
Okay.
payroll company. They can give me this.
What? There's all kinds of statuses. There's all kinds of things we can keep. We can go to them with a God trust, say, hey, I don't own anything. I don't earn any wages. Everything I earn goes to God. I just manage it. It's His. Pay Him. Here's the God trust. Here's how you pay Him. Hand Him the God trust. Get Him to write the paychecks to God trust. Not you, not your name, not your social security number, not nothing. Put it in the trust. Here's the bank account. Now the hard, because that one's legal and this one's lawful.
You can't get an EIN for a God trust. Okay.
Well, they will issue you an EIN for a God trust, but why the heck would you?
Okay.
Crossing the streams.
I need that sign.
I know. Well, here's the thing. I understand this, but you have to transact through your trust.
That's right. Banks are evil.
All of
They
it.
are all of
Credit unions, not FDICs.
credit unions. Let me show you something.
I have a trust, an irrevocable trust, banking through a credit union. I'm trying to figure out the difference between a benefit of a God trust as opposed to an irrevocable trust.
This is a Voice of Youth credit card through a credit union, and it's a God trust.
Okay. So there's certain credit unions that you recommend over others. Just that.
Wait, is
It's
it
Voice
God?
of Youth Trust.
That's the name of your trust.
No. I'm an ambassador for Voice of Youth. I didn't start the organization, started 30 years before I even knew about it. But I go around the country and speak on behalf of the legislators. I've gone to The Hague, gone to Switzerland. He wants me to travel all over the world just doing this. Okay. So, that's a God trust at a credit. And here's the problem.
Financial institution.
You got that God trust set up that credit union for 30 years. I walk in, set mine up, they said, yeah, we'll accept it.
Because it's you. You have a reputation.
No. There's the key. I didn't have a reputation. William Buffett did. I took my God trust in there. They looked at it, they read it, and said, yeah, I think we can do it. We filled out all the paperwork. I deposited $100 in mine. I did Greg Stockchill's at the same time. Put $100 in his, opened the accounts, went through their legal department, they closed our accounts, and they handed us back the money.
Without an EIN, they open up an account.
Yes. No EIN, no nothing. But they have to run things by their attorneys. See, that's why I tell that story. I think that's an important story to tell of the kid in the space needle. Seattle's a unique town. Literally the largest corporations in the world are based in Seattle. And to have an attorney firm have the gall to say, we run it, that's too much power. That just irks me. He took away all those little private business owners and CEOs of various corporations, including Bill Gates's and Boeing's and Amazon's, and he took away all their power with that one state. He says they don't do anything until they run it by a legal department. Right? Our greatest enemy in the world today is the bar. By far. By far is the Bar Association. The Bar Association is an army that has usurped all four branches of our government. They're in our Congress, they're in our Senate, they're in our judicial, they're in our administrative branch. Don't think for a minute anything President Trump does isn't run by some darn attorney named William Barr.
I thought the Queen just got on board.
Queen got on board with something higher than that. You gotta understand, there's the PINDAR, there's person canceled 13, person canceled 300, and somewhere down here on one of these lines is the United States government. Every organization on earth is right down here. They're all in control. All of them. I hate to admit it, but it's because we screwed up.
Yeah.
We, the people, are more numerous and more powerful than any of them. Any of them in that group. They control the purse strings, and they control the attorneys, which control the corporations. Yet somewhere in there is us.
So you say the Queen still has plenty of bosses above her in Qatar, and she's in the same boat we are.
She is the Queen of England, Queen of Holland, and it used to be the Vatican. It's now TVM. That is the bit.
It's TVM.
TVM. Now, in reality, it should be this guy.
Yeah, who is TVM
And who is their
and
KG?
GWT?
Will you turn your camera off?
Telagaris Marcos.
Say again, please.
This is his initials.
Hello.
He's the grandson of Marcos of the Philippines, who was pulled out of power by the United States government, and Duarte was put in place. King George Joaquin Tatar. This man is the direct descendant heir of King Solomon's mines. All the gold and silver pretty much in the world. If you turn every gold bar under Westminster or every gold bar under the airport in Zurich, Switzerland over, there's a stamp and a number. That stamp is his. Million shipping containers full.
He's literally the one that controls.
They would have to unload 2/3 of every shipping container just to lift it. Otherwise, they'd just bring it down. The quarters would pop off where the cables.
What's up with that story of, hold on a second, Mike of Saint Germain and the World Bank? Is that just a total story going around? Because that to me seems sort of like these guys, because they also want to end, but it says it sounds like a fallacy, a total made up story.
Nope.
The Bank of Saint Germain.
Nope. It's not made up story.
So who is he? Because he's supposedly, it's been a couple months since I read it. So who is he, and all this money was supposedly taken out from under the buildings in
He was the
New
saint
York?
that guards the banks. He's the reason for 9/11. They were trying to move all the money into 3 locations.
After 9/11, so they really did. There was money under that building.
And it's really 5 locations. 2 of them are pretty secret right now. We know where they are. It's pretty secret.
So there really was gold under those buildings, and they did move it.
There were millions of tons of gold in those buildings, so of course they moved it.
Why did they put gold under these buildings? Why? Where? Because where else do they put it? They have
You
to
ever
put.
flown to Zurich?
No.
Land your airplane on the tarmac? There's 10 feet steel reinforced concrete underneath that tarmac. Underneath there is millions, millions, millions of gold bricks.
Wow. So that story that I have is, okay, so yeah, that Saint Germain, he's a saint. He's not a, I have to read the story again, but all that stuff that I read in that was probably, a lot of it was true.
Havengard Trust is controlled by James Linder. James Linder is American. 80 plus years old, and he's a royal. He holds all the gold and silver in trust. That trust holds all the gold and silver. The World Bank, and 4% interest by the ancestors of those two individuals. They were the heirs to King Solomon's fortunes. That's why I told you the hierarchy had to split. King Solomon, King Ferdinand of Spain, and King Ferdinand of Spain bought a bunch of ships. So if you go to the left, King Solomon's fortunes from all of King Solomon's mines all over the world, from the Philippines, from the Maoris, from the Easter Islands, from the Cook Islands, from the Incas in South America, from the mines. He collected gold, all this gold, because it was his. He inherited it. Those peoples were King Solomon's miners, descendants of King Solomon's miners that were left all over the world from King Solomon's mines, which were all over the world. So you have to understand history and how hierarchy works and how these people got from the Garden of Eden down through King David, King Solomon, and how they spread throughout the world. Filipino is first people. Trace their ancestors through the Maharaka tribe, right through Seth, right to Adam. Okay. All these different types of people, we're all related. Every one of us are related.
I'm sorry about the 7.
13.
I forgot how Queen Elizabeth and the other one, the Amish queen, how did they get there? Because they each have a third, and then the King Solomon's has a third, right? Was that it? Was that in the Pendar? Where did Queen Elizabeth and...
Queen Elizabeth inherited through King John's son.
Oh, okay.
All
That's
your
how.
British, French, and Italian monarchs
Okay.
inherited from King John.
Okay,
Everybody else inherited from Ferdinand. All of our presidents,
gotcha. So these
all
brothers
of our
or cousins
presidents'
are from
genealogy trace back to King John, except two. One traces to both, and one, as in Trump, traces to King Ferdinand. He's a cousin of TB.
All presidents are
Which-
cousins of each other. That's the whole.
But you
George
mentioned
Orwell
that.
did that project where she proved genealogically that all the presidents are related.
Yeah.
However, there's 6 degrees of separation, so that would be easy to prove that everyone's related anyways. That's my skepticism on that. Right? I mean, within 6 degrees, I'm related to royalty.
Sure.
Well, 6 degrees of separation, right? You just have to find it.
Well, Trump's uncle was the one that.
Is that a fair skepticism to have, Mr. Street?
No, it's a mathematical formula. It's not skepticism. It's a mathematical formula that there's 6 degrees of separation. Okay, let's move.
You were saying that you gave $100 and you gave $100 to your friend's account and then they went through legal and they got shut down.
Uh-huh.
That's where we were at.
Yep.
Went through legal at that bank. He was trying to put a code out.
Do you want to listen to me?
I was just checking because we
I
got
thought it was
sidetracked.
weird. Yes. Okay. This account that I showed you from Boise Youth, I went to the same county, recorded my documents, I went to the same credit union that he's been banking with for 30 years. And I opened an account in my new God Trust and Greg Stodge's new God Trust. And I opened 2 accounts. And then the trust documents went through legal. And they said no. Now, he's been there 30 plus years. So somewhere along the line, some kind of a regulation changed or a policy changed in the credit union that they wouldn't accept God trusts. But there's Christian credit unions. There's all kinds of different places we can try. So I'm not too worried about it. Not
Now,
only
do they have a
that,
full God
if
trust
I
document
wanted
or just a
to,
certificate?
not only that, if I wanted to, I could force by law any credit union or any bank to take the trust.
Do these credit unions just take the certificate or do they need the entirety of the God trust to see the body?
No. I gave them a copy.
The full body of the trust?
Yeah.
Okay,
Of the full body of the trust.
so they know your business.
It's not my business.
trust business, yes.
So this document I also gave, and it's a whole bunch of laws. In fact, all of this was taken right off the IRS's website. And it says every organization exempt from federal income tax under Internal Revenue Code Section 501A must file an annual information return except a church, an interchurch organization of local units of a church, a convention or association of churches, an integrated auxiliary of a church-affiliated organization that is exclusively engaged in managing funds or maintaining retirement
Shouldn't
programs.
the satisfy 501(c)(3)?
No.
Just like the recommendation.
A school below college level affiliated with a church or operated by a religious order, a church-affiliated mission societies, if more than half their activities are conducted in or directed at persons in foreign countries, or an exclusively religious activity of any religious order. If it's religious, they can't tell you crap. No church has to be a 501c3. If they do, they've caved in. They've gone against God's laws and became legal. Recently, the IRS lost a $175 million class action lawsuit that included more than 700,000 people and businesses to recover unlawful license fees paid to the IRS for PTINs, EINs, and TINs. Public Law 97-280, the Bible's the word of God. Okay? In the Bible it says that which is legal is unlawful. It says it's an abomination to God. There's 5 authors in the Bible that clearly distinguish between a man and a person.
Seriously?
Yes.
I've been down this road a long time and I never put that theological side.
Job 32:21. Be the man and not the person. 22 says, do not put flattering titles upon a man. For if I do, I will surely be swept away. The title of a person. Do not put the title of a person upon a man. For if I do, I shall surely be swept away. It's an abomination. It's a crime in violation of 42 U.S.C. Section 408 A8. It's a crime in violation of 18 U.S.C. 911. It's a crime in violation of 18 U.S.C. 912 to use or compel the use of any government-issued identifying number in connection with the submitter, such as a social security number, as defined in 20 CFR 422.103D, or a taxpayer identification number as defined in 26 U.S.C. 6109,
That's why it can't be
or an
used.
employer identification number as defined in 26 U.S.C. 6109.
That's why it can't be used for identification purposes. You can
That's
use it
right.
administratively all you want, but if you identify by a unique number.
That's right. Banking law states as you, as a bank employee, if policy directs you to ask for an identity number, such as an SSI, an EIN, or a TIN, and you are denied or refused, your only requirement is to do a single-page affidavit stating you asked and you were denied, and then add it into the account file. It does not mean you can deny opening the account.
So they can deny it, but then they have to open it anyway.
If no information or return is filed, the Internal Revenue Service cannot assess you. So in other words, if you don't turn anything into the IRS, they can't assess you for taxes. That's a statement made by Gary Makovsky a special IRS agent testifying under oath in U.S. versus Floyd. Okay. Our tax system is based upon voluntary assessment and payment, not distraint. That's the United States Supreme Court in Florida versus the United States. Our tax system is based on individual self-assessment and voluntary compliance. That's Mortimer Chaplin, former commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, in the Internal Revenue Audit Manual of 1975. That's a published internal IRS manual. It states it's a published document, therefore settled law.
This happened 4 weeks ago too. It was a public declaration of the IRS, from the IRS, and it's still a big splash in all over, social media.
I like this one. The United States has a system of taxation by confession. Hugo Black, Supreme Court Justice in U.S. versus Carrier. A system of taxation by confession. Isn't that consent? We confessed. Yep, we earned this much money. Let's put it on the 1040. What does the word 1040 come from? Where does that number come from? This is fun. I don't know what I do with that.
Cause you know the answer. And so it's like ridiculous.
Is it 10? Oh, God. Man, why didn't you say something? You had your opportunity to embarrass it. I mean, you didn't take it. Where'd that come from? Anybody know? Good old Honest Abe. During the Civil War, he asked we the people to invest in 1040 bonds to fund the war.
Oh my gosh.
And we're still investing in 1040 bonds.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Only now we're forced into it by our own ignorance and our consent.
Wow.
History is a wonderful fun. The Internal Revenue Service is considered to be a bureau of the Department of the Treasury. However, like the Federal Reserve, it is not part of the federal government. You can find that in Diversified Metal Products versus the IRS et al. You can also find it in CB-93-405E-EJE-USDCDI. You can also find it codified through Congress in Public Law 94-564. You can also find it in Senate Report 94-1148 on page 5,967 of that Senate report. You can find it in the Reorganization Plan number 26, codified in Public Law 102-391, and is in fact incorporated in the state of Delaware, is where the Internal Revenue Service is incorporated. It was incorporated in 1925. The municipal IRS was incorporated in 1933 because we went bankrupt, so they reincorporated in 1933.
Can you please send this to Christine so that we can, because you lost me and I want to spend more time listening than writing down, but so I can read.
I don't want to spend more time listening to me either.
No, I want to listen to you, otherwise I'm trying to keep up with all the numbers and.
Anything you do with an IRS is an admission. It's a confession. It's through your own consent. No one has to operate through the IRS if your status is a we the people. Once you change your status, you're done. Now you have to figure out how to be done with your employer and done with other people. See, I got one little advantage, other than the United States Navy and one other federal agency and a couple of other little minor jobs that I've taken. I've never worked for anybody else. I've always designed, implemented, started my own businesses, created my own things. Did I make mistakes? Yeah, a whole heck of a lot. That's why I'm here. I try to learn from my mistakes and not do it again. But every time I've ever been sued, I've won. And I've never spent a day in jail. Over that period of time, that's saying something. As busy as I've been. There's many crazy ass things that
Okay, question. Negative, anything negative that could come out of not, that we're used to, any luxuries that we receive from the government as far as protection and all that stuff, that we, by giving up the taxes and, us being self-governed instead, anything to look for
Look,
that will happen when,
I am
what
very-
negative impact will this have on us?
I am very happy to pay my share of the taxes for 19 essential governmental services and because I am a we the people and I agreed to that through my ancestry, my hierarchy. And that's what we asked our government to provide and no more. But I have a real problem with paying for 6,000 services that I'm forced at gunpoint to pay for.
People I have no problem with my money.
Well,
There you go.
Yeah.
one of the privileges was the currency that the Federal Reserve provides. That's one of the 19 enumerated services is that Federal Reserve
No.
currency. No, it's not.
It's not the Federal Reserve currency that's provided.
American currency provided by the Federal Reserve.
No. It's American currency provided by the United States Treasury, which does not exist anymore. The United States Treasury is now under the IMF. The Secretary of the Treasury gets his paycheck from the World Bank, not from the United States government. Our Treasury ceased to exist in 1933. That's when they confiscated all the gold and silver. They confiscated over $1 million, valued at $20 an ounce, from my grandpa. My grandpa, he was a geologist for the state of California. And they took all of his gold and silver, or he would have had to pay a $10,000 fine and 5 years in prison. Forced into turning.
We were ever gonna find that.
Between 1908
How could
and
they force you to give them
1935,
your gold?
we should have fought back. And fought back hard. But it started in 1861 with a man called Abe. Right here in the state of
That's where we generated, that's when we generated DC, that's when DC happened.
Yeah. DC was 1871, it was right after Lincoln's death. Lincoln put everything in place to make that happen.
Tell me what Columbia is. District of Columbia. What is it? It doesn't have anything to do with the country of Columbia. Who is Columbia? What are we talking about? What is Columbia?
What is the Columbia River? What is it?
I want to know. You know, there's a St. Columbia,
There's a St. Columbia, there's a Mount
patron of
Columbia.
witches.
Yes, there you go.
Is that it?
Yep, had to draw you out.
So, I'm still wondering why they took your grandfather's gold and why you can't. They took everybody's gold. They just
They
said it was
took
illegal to have
everybody's
gold.
in 1933.
Yep.
Door-to-door guns.
Anyone that has.
And so, can you go after them now and give them a constitutional reason that they didn't have a right to take the gold and get it back?
They'll say you weren't a party to it.
Literally robbed at gunpoint. Everyone.
There's
So
an
you
actual
can't-
poster.
So you can't go and fight for anything that a dead person lost. You have no rights to the dead's being stolen from?
Under executive order of the President issued April 4th, 1933, all persons are required to deliver on or before May 1st, 1933. That wasn't very much time. It's less than 30 days they had. All gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates now owned by them to a Federal Reserve Bank branch or agency or to any member bank of the Federal Reserve System by executive order. Criminal penalties for violation of the executive order is a $10,000 fine, 10 years imprisonment, or both, as provided in Section 9 of this order.
If they did that, what makes it so they don't take our guns? Do the same thing. What keeps them from taking our guns?
Really, us. You understand, that's the whole reason I'm here.
And how can we let
I'm
them get away
trying
with
to
that
teach the
shit?
people that they are non-authority,
And why keep,
that they can try and do anything that they want to do, and it is up to us. They operate by our consent if we allow it.
there's no statutory limitations. We can go back and sue them for what they did in the 30s. Why not?
I want you to understand something.
Sorry, but that just,
Let's say there's about 40,000 people in Congress, the Senate, West Wing of the White House, the President, the upper judiciary. There's about 40. You take the military out of it, because I believe they'd be on our side. But in those other groups, there's about 40,000. Our 2018 census says there's 327.2 million of us
With 400 million guns.
with 400 million guns.
okay.
Okay,
the gun thing, I
whose
still-
fault is it if they take anything from us? There you go.
I know, but I still think statute of limitations, we should get, whoever wants their gold back should get it back. Damn it. Why are people working? Because they need money, they need retirement. Why don't they get
Wisconsin
their
in
gold back?
February
And
is,
they can get it back out of their little bond fund, their the government
They
can give them the money
collect $1
back.
trillion a day in our court systems.
let's rob them. Let's do what they do.
$1
Rob them?
trillion.
Rob them. And
Turn the camera off.
All you
I'm
gotta do is learn who you are, your status. Learn that you're alive,
Every day
you're
is
standing.
just,
Learn which jurisdiction you're in
Yeah,
and stand up and stop it.
yes.
That's all you have to do. So everything is about status, standing, and jurisdiction. Everything.
Violence is always a Band-Aid too. It doesn't fix anything. This is the right way to do it.
no, but I say
We would
there's no
never have to
statute.
fire a shot.
Yeah.
If 327 million people unarmed surrounded Washington D.C. and held hands,
I just think they should have to give
You
gold back to the
leave
people
it.
they stole it from.
no food's coming in, no water's getting bottled, the restaurants are gonna be empty in days, nothing's coming in here. No semi-trucks, no nothing. No delivery of anything. You suckers are stuck right here in this 10 square miles because there's 327 million people holding hands around this 10 square mile area. And we refuse to. What are they gonna do?
Yeah, well, we're not getting all 327 of
No.
them. There's a bunch of sheep out
Not
there.
even
Nobody
close.
wants to hear
We only
this
need
stuff.
about 10%.
Well, you can practice what the government basically did in Puerto Rico after we had the biggest on everybody's seat.
Every war we've ever had that we've won with 3%. That's really all.
Do we know how many population we have right now that are U.S. nationals?
Yeah.
Is there a way to know?
Yeah.
Tell us.
10 years ago it was 40,000. Now it's a little over 4,000.
Awesome.
Now you want to hear from that part? The vast majority of them are judges and attorneys.
Yep. 'Cause they know.
They know
And
how
the
to
Clintons,
protect
that's how they
themselves.
get promoted.
Yes. There you go.
Let's,
Okay.
let's stop there, do lunch. It's like 1:30.
No, you're supposed to be the moderator, buddy. Tell me what time it is. All right,
I'm telling you.
let's go to lunch.
No, it's